and gentlemen, I'm Kwesi Mfume from the state of Maryland, obviously not Nydia Velasquez, who has unfortunately been detained, but I suspect should be joining us a little later in today's hearing. I want to officially call this hearing to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time in the proceedings. Let me begin by saying that the Standing House and committee rules and practices will continue as they usually do to apply during remote proceedings. All members of the committee are reminded that they are expected to adhere to these standing rules, including decorum when they are participating in any remote event. Now, with that said, the technology that we are utilizing today requires us to make some small modifications to ensure that members can fully participate in these proceedings. It's important to note that House regulations require members to be visible through a video connection throughout the proceedings, so please keep your cameras on. If you have to participate in another proceeding, please exit and then log back again later. And in the event that a member encounters technical issues that prevent them from being recognized for their questioning, I will then move to the next available member of the same party, and I will recognize that member at the next appropriate time slot, provided they have returned, obviously, to the proceeding. Should a member be interrupted by technical issues, again, I will recognize that member at the next appropriate spot for the remainder of their time once those issues have indeed been resolved. In the event a witness loses connectivity during testimony or questioning, I will preserve their time as the staff attempts to address the technical issues. I may need to recess the proceedings from time to time or at a particular time to provide for a witness to connect. We'd like to have everybody's participation, obviously. And finally, remember to remain muted until you are recognized to minimize background noise. In accordance with the rules, staff has been advised to mute participants only in the event if there is an inadvertent sounding or set of background noises. And should a member wish to be recognized, they must then unmute themselves and seek recognition at the appropriate time. Now, again, I just like to say for those of you who may have joined a moment or two late, as you can see, I'm not Chair Velasquez, the chairwoman of the Small Business Committee. She unfortunately has been detained and expects perhaps to join us at some other part of this hearing. But as vice chair of the committee, let me begin by thanking the small businesses that are here with us today. Time is always a luxury for entrepreneurs like you, so I really, really appreciate your testimony. Since 1963, Americans have come together to celebrate National Small Business Week. Every year during this week, we recognize the small businesses in our communities and the entrepreneurial spirit that helps to make this country great. Reading the biographies of today's witnesses, it's clear that this spirit is alive and well, and moreover, their stories are evidence that regardless of circumstance, small business owners will always rise to the occasion and achieve great things. The integrity and the character of these businesses shine bright over the past 18 months, a dark time, as we know, in our nation's history. COVID introduced challenges that would have been unthinkable a short time ago, but through it all, small businesses have done what it takes to survive and to serve their communities nonetheless during a time of great crisis. From grocers supplying essential goods to small manufacturers producing PPE, small firms have been there for our country every step of the way. And for that, we thank you. Today, we are joined by small businesses operating in the districts that we have the privilege to represent. These entrepreneurs may be separated, obviously, by long distances and operate in different industries, but their determination and their will to succeed unite them today. So I look forward to hearing your success stories, and I know the ranking member and everyone else in this committee feels the same way. What has happened and what has hurt your business, we're interested in. We want to know how we as a committee can help your businesses become stronger than ever. Because businesses like yours number nearly 30 million and employ half the private workforce. So, long story short, you are indeed the foundation of our economy and the glue that holds our communities together. For our country to ultimately recover, we need your businesses operating at full strength. And I'd like to, if I might now, yield to the ranking member, Mr. Lukemire, for his opening statement. Mr. Lukemire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of the small business owners who are with us today as we celebrate National Small Business Week, including my constituent, Jan Haviland, owner and president of Haviland Corporation. Small business owners like you are the drivers of the United States economy and workforce, and you have been absolutely vital in getting our nation's economy back up and running after the forced nationwide shutdowns and altered capacity restrictions this past year. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. They are comprised of job creators and innovators alike. Across the United States, there are an estimated 32.5 million small businesses, making up 99% of all our nation's businesses and employing over 61 million workers. Whether you realize it or not, small businesses have impacted the lives of every single American. As ranking member of the Small Business Committee, it is an honor to work alongside my colleagues to create common sense policies that uplift our nation's small businesses while also protecting the American taxpayer. I understand the duty we have in fighting the deregulation, lower taxes, access to capital, and increased SBA oversight, especially in the wake of the pandemic. As you all know, COVID-19 devastated small businesses with overreaching state and local shutdown measures and altered capacity restrictions. Through no fault of their own, small businesses have faced extreme challenges that are still ongoing. As a response, Congress has created numerous small business relief programs to provide much needed assistance to Main Street USA. Some of these programs, such as the Paycheck Protection Program, have successfully assisted millions of small businesses from coast to coast, providing hundreds of billions of dollars in assistance. Unfortunately, small businesses continue to face increasing obstacles. NFIB's August job report found that 50% of all small business owners reported job openings they could not fill in the current period, a record high reading. Additionally, inflation continues to skyrocket to the highest rate in 30 years, and my Democrat colleagues continue to tout their reckless tax and spend spree, leaving struggling small business owners with the bill. As our nation celebrates small businesses this week and every week, we must support Main Street USA by advancing pro-growth policies that allow small business owners and their employees to contribute to the economy and create jobs. We must get irresponsible partisan spending under control, provide tax relief for job creators, and remove burdensome government mandates that are being forced upon small business owners. Again, I want to thank our panel of witnesses for taking time away from their businesses for this important hearing as we celebrate small business resiliency. Look forward to your testimonies. And that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The distinguished gentleman from Missouri, the ranking member, yields back. I just noticed that we've been joined by our chairwoman, the distinguished Nydia Velasquez in New York. Madam Chair, I'd be happy to yield back to you appropriately so at this time so that you can continue.
Well, I just want to thank you and all the members for being in this meeting today. And I just want to excuse myself. Both the ranking member and myself, we are voting on the Financial Services Committee reconciliation package. But I would like to introduce our witnesses. And our first witness is Mr. Todd Greenfield, the Vice President of Greenfield Clothing in my district, Brooklyn, New York. Greenfield Clothiers is a Brooklyn manufacturer of hand-tailored men's clothing. The company was founded in 1977 by Martin Greenfield when he bought the factory from his former employer. Survivor of the Holocaust, an immigrant to America, he joined in as 1947 as an entry-level floor boy, ultimately rising to vice president of production before buying the company. Now, Martin, along with his two sons, Todd and Jay, run the company as a trio of managers. Todd has worked around the clock during the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure his company stays open, whether by adapting his business to make PPE or utilizing pandemic assistance programs from the SBA to ensure his workers retain pay. Thank you, Mr. Greenfield, for being here today. And now I call on the ranking member to introduce his witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jan Haviland is owner and president of Haviland Corporation in Lynn, Missouri. Founded in 1946, Haviland Corporation began manufacturing custom floor and window squeegees in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1974, they moved to the current location, Lynn, Missouri, where the manufacturing is still done today. As industry evolves and grows, Haviland continues to expand its product offerings accordingly. And during the pandemic, they were able to expand their operations to provide crucial PPE supplies to Missourians and beyond. This kind of adaptability and ability to cater to new demands is part of what makes small businesses great. They operate to meet the needs of their customers and community, not answer to big corporations. Haviland has been a family-owned business since they opened their doors and has a mission to continue manufacturing their products in the United States, creating jobs and innovations that keep our country and economy strong. It's companies like the Haviland Corporation that have helped Missouri lead the charge in our nation's economic recovery. Ms. Haviland, thank you so much for being with us today and taking time out of your schedule to share your small business testimony. Thank you so much. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
I think the chair may have exited. I do want to thank her for coming into the hearing to explain the situation that both she and the ranking member are faced with, is the dualities of this process that happen from time to time. So having said that, I would like at this particular time to do two things. One is to introduce a witness myself, and then the other, obviously, following that would be to yield to the distinguished gentleman from Texas for his chance to do the same. As we know, this is a time to formally pause and to recognize the services, the sacrifice, and indeed the integrity of our small businesses that exist throughout our communities. In Maryland's 7th Congressional District, which I have the honor to represent, small businesses like in your district represent the real fabric of our community. In my district, from Randallstown to Woodlawn to Catonsville, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, downtown Columbia, and several other communities, those businesses have become the foundation of the recovery that we've witnessed here in Central Maryland. This morning, we will hear from my guest, Ms. Shalonda Stokes, who is president of the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore and the CEO of the Downtown Management Authority, a business improvement district in the heart of Baltimore City. In these capacities, she's responsible for building an environment that's conducive to businesses of all types and indeed all sizes. Ms. Stokes co-chaired the Small Business Recovery Task Force during last year's COVID-19 shutdown, and she serves on the National Women's Business Council as a presidential appointee. Prior to taking over the Downtown Partnership, Ms. Stokes was president and CEO of a full-service marketing and entertainment agency that she co-founded. Her deep understanding of what it takes to create and to sustain a small business, particularly Black-owned businesses, has led to an innovative new program helping small business startups in downtown Baltimore City. And so it's my indeed pleasure to welcome Ms. Stokes to speak with us today about small businesses here in my district, but also across the country. Ms. Stokes, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. And so we'll not go into the formal introduction. You did.
Oh, Ms. Stokes, I'm sorry. This is what happens when you're not the chair. I think the process here is we're going to do the introductions and then come back and allow each one of the guests today to speak. So it's my error. I apologize. Thank you for letting me step on you as you got started there. And with that, I'd like to yield now to the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member, for extending me the opportunity to introduce one of our witnesses and one of my friends. I'm proud to introduce Natasha Hudson. Ms. Hudson is the owner of Hudson's on Mercer Street, a live music venue in Dripping Springs, Texas, which is located in my district in the great state of Texas. Mrs. Hudson and her husband started the business 6 years ago to bring passion and knowledge of the music business to the historic district of Dripping Springs, just outside of Austin, Texas. Prior to starting this business, Ms. Hudson was a lifelong musician from Nashville, Tennessee. After teaching music out of her home for 2 years and building a clientele, she expanded the business to a 4,000 square foot event space and hired a teaching staff of 12 people. Her hope is to spread the power of music and the arts to the community, has made Hudson's on Mercer the place, I repeat, the place for nightlife and community events in Dripping Springs. Ms. Hudson, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. We look forward to hearing more about your small business experience and your work with local communities. And I know that because of small business owners like yourself and even myself, we will turn this economy around from the devastation we've seen from COVID. So I also want to thank all of our other witnesses for joining us today, and thank you for being the heartbeat of this country. And I yield my time back.
The gentleman yields back his time. The chair recognizes Mr. Fitzgerald of Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Good morning. It's my honor to introduce Miss Gina Felder, Chief Financial Officer for TJ Hale Company. Gina, welcome. TJ Hale Company is a manufacturer of fixtures. It's located in my district in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. The company was founded in 1950 in a 3,000 square foot shop in Butler, Wisconsin, which is also in the district, and specialized in supermarket interiors and architectural woodworking. The company has since expanded to 120,000 square feet of integrated manufacturing facilities and offers interior service for retail, hospitality, restaurants, and businesses, as well as architectural millwork in other industries throughout the United States and across the globe. Ms. Felder has spent over 2 decades with TJ Hale and is responsible for the overall financial strategies and financial management functions of the company. She is responsible for accounting, treasury, budgeting, and financial planning, taxation, risk management, legal, and information systems. That's just about everything. I can't think of anything else they could have you doing. She's also a member of the company's executive committee, and wanted to welcome Miss Gina Felder as not only a constituent, but as a witness. So glad you're here today. I'll yield back.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. The chair would like to recognize Mr. Greenfield to proceed with his testimony, and then we will go in the order in which the guests have been introduced. Mr. Greenfield.
Thanks. Good morning, Chair Velasquez, Ranking Member Lukemire, and distinguished members of Congress. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to testify today. I'm Todd Greenfield. I live in Nassau County, New York. I'm an owner of Martin Greenfield Clothiers in Bushwick, Brooklyn. We manufacture custom clothing for business people and weddings, as well as presidents and celebrities. As you just heard, my father, Martin Greenfield, emigrated to the United States as an orphaned Holocaust survivor in 1947. He got his first job as a floor boy at the 3G's clothing factory we now operate in. In 1977, after his employer decided to shut down the factory, Martin purchased it and established Martin Greenfield Clothiers. Dad has always been grateful for having been liberated from Buchenwald by the United States Army. He started his career as a union member and always felt a strong desire to give back to the communities that welcomed him. When the neighborhood got rough and factories started moving away, Martin pulled other owners together and helped establish one of the first industrial parks in New York City, now known as Evergreen. My father always considered the needs of the employees, the neighborhood, the vendors, and customers in his decision-making process. These values instilled into my brother Jay and I, who currently run the company. I also serve as the current board chair of Evergreen. Our company wasn't prepared for the COVID shutdown and sudden loss of business. We could not have survived with the devastating effect without the 2 PPP loans, the EIDL loan, and the employee retention credit we received. These enabled us to hang on and continue paying our employees health care during the shutdown and the long months after. Our business, custom tailored clothing, is very dependent on events. Business people dressing for the office, lawyers dressing for court, and film and television production. Our industry was particularly hard hit because of this dependence upon in-person events. This came on top of decades competing against cheap imports from foreign manufacturers who benefit from unfair government support. Directly because of COVID, our sales were down over 50% for an entire year. We are finally experiencing a return in demand for our clothing. However, sales are still down over 25%. As the only union men's clothing manufacturer left in New York City, we are an important resource providing living wage jobs to over 50 mostly immigrant craftspeople. Just as our father was able to send my brother and I to college, so have hundreds of our employees been able to establish their families here in Brooklyn. We were able to provide safe access to sewing machinery and space for Parsons School of Design students while their school was closed because of COVID. Over the years, we've hosted classes from Parsons, FIT, School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and many other schools who seek hands-on learning experiences. When the COVID lockdown silenced our factory, we were able to safely reopen to produce and donate tens of thousands of masks and thousands of hospital gowns needed by our local frontline community. Before our first PPP loan was funded, we raised money through a GoFundMe, enabling us to purchase mask-making supplies. We donated masks to St. Nick's Alliance, Downstate Medical Center, the New York City Administration for Children's Services, as well as many hospitals and frontline workers. I want to thank you. Your actions through the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan provided life-saving support to our company, our employees, and our community here in Brooklyn. However, this support has ended before the pandemic. I urge you to consider some additional relief targeted to especially hard-hit industries like ours, which depend on in-person events. Thank you for your time today.
Mr. Greenfield, thank you very much for your testimony, and congratulations on being a generational business that has survived many decades here in this country. We appreciate your time here with us. Chair would like at this point to recognize Ms. Havlin for her testimony. Please go right ahead. Ms. Havlin, you are muted.
There we go.
There we
Is that
go.
better?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Lukemire and members of the committee, I'm honored for the opportunity to testify for the committee today about National Small Business Week. I am Jan Havlin, owner of the Havlin Corporation in Lynn, Missouri, a rural town of about 1,500 people. I'm chairperson of the Missouri Leadership Council for the NFIB, industrial representative for the Mammoth Regional Planning Commission, and on the board of directors for the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. Havlin Corporation is a 75-year-old business started in about 1946 by my in-laws, Warren and Van Havlin. Warren served in World War II and the Korean conflict and was a combat disabled veteran recognized in both with a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. After World War II, Warren worked with his father-in-law, a sanitary supply distributor in St. Louis. Warren enjoyed the industry and saw a need for premium floor squeegees. Thus, Havlin Corporation began. Van Havlin was the majority stockholder since the inception of Havlin until my daughter and Alice and I purchased the business in 2014, thus making Havlin a woman-owned business for all 75 years. And since that time, we've done different types of squeegees to increase our product lines. In 1974, Havlin outgrew its location in St. Louis and moved to Lynn, Missouri in Osage County. There, the factory was built in a new Lynn industrial park, and we've had two additions in the 80s and the 90s to that building. Our staff has been consistent for many years, and in 2010, I was named president of Havlin, and my daughter was named executive vice president, and she is now well on her way to becoming the third generation to run Havlin. The business practices changed. We had to contend with changes, one of which was increased in products imported from China. We had some purchases of materials from China, but greatly reduced those purchases around 2009 because quality decreased and we wanted to continue being a made in the USA product as we are today. Raw material lead times have become a huge problem. We have seen an increase in our lead times go from 2 to 5 days to 4 to 6 weeks or even more, caused by the lengthening of time needed to get the materials. We have adjusted our order times to make sure those materials do arrive so our products get out the door in a timely manner. When the COVID-19 pandemic arrived in March of 2020, we saw a drop in business for several months. And with the help of the PPP funds, we were able to go through the rest of the year. We also provided our county with personal protection equipment in the form of washable gowns. Since January of 2021, we have experienced numerous cost increases from all suppliers, from corrugated boxes, steel finishes, rubber, freight, plastic parts, nuts and bolts, and numerous other product parts. In the turn, it's also caused us to increase prices we have to charge. We usually had a 2 to 5% increases every 2 years, but this year we're looking at a 10 to 12% increase. As the tax increase in the federal government is proposed for C corporations, this would wipe out about 2/3 of our price increase. In running a business, it's essential to have the money to cover cost increases, repair and replace equipment, do building repairs, and to provide health insurance and wage increases for employees, hoping those don't get wiped out with inflation. The price increasing on materials, what would remain in our pocket with that price increase would be very little to cover the federal tax increase on C corporations. The choice of either pricing ourselves out of the market or covering the cost of doing business because of higher taxes will have Haviland in a nearly impossible situation. In 1946, Haviland had a choice of becoming a C Corp, a partnership, or a sole proprietorship. The C Corp model was chosen because it provided liability protection, even though it carried with it 2 levels of taxation, corporate and individual. And small businesses like ours are reluctant to change over to another type of business model. By treating all sizes of C Corps the same with the current proposed tax increases, this would jeopardize the small business C Corps by taking a disproportionate share of profits, dollars needed to make their businesses grow. We are a small business with less than 20 employees. We provide health insurance for our employees, their families, pension plans, stock ownership, profit sharing plans, and college tuition donations for our employees' children, as well as other benefits. We proudly manufacture in the United States. And Haviland Corporation believes in Americans helping Americans. And this has been a corporate mission since inception with Warren and Van Haviland. It's about providing jobs to pay for those little league uniforms or for piano lessons, paying taxes to improve roadways, and in providing insurance for our staff to relieve some of the stress that comes with illness. It is important we work with one another, and by manufacturing in the United States of America, we can do that. Now we need your help to ensure that this ability to operate and grow and own those small businesses continue. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Haviland. Congratulations to you and your daughter on 3 generations of business owners, but even more so, I guess, to have founded a women's owned business 75 years ago, I'm sure is a story in and of itself. We appreciate your time and your testimony. The chair would like to again now recognize Ms. Stokes, who I inadvertently cut off previously for her testimony. You know, it's just great that you're here, Ms. Stokes. I've known you for years, and I'm going to give you a few minutes so that people here on the panel will get to know you as well. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Mfume. I know in the absence of Chair Velasquez, I want to thank her, you, and Ranking Member Lukemire, and all of the members of this committee. As you mentioned, I'm Shalonda Stokes and honored to stand before you today. We're talking about a poor girl from Baltimore City who matriculated through the Baltimore public school system, graduated from Baltimore Polytechnic Institute and then Morgan State University with a degree in electrical engineering, to owning a minority business and now serving as the president of Downtown Partnership of Baltimore. To the committee, I thank you for your leadership and commitment in advancing economic opportunities for all Americans through your work on behalf of small businesses. Your efforts and your foresight over the last 19 months really making a difference to countless small businesses and their employees as we continue to navigate a health and economic crisis unlike anyone has seen in at least 5 generations. And so I would be remiss if I didn't use this opportunity to thank all of the members of Maryland's congressional delegation. Vice Chair Mfume, a special shout out to you. I thank you for your support and commitment to Baltimore. To you, to Senator Cardin and Van Hollen. I mean, you guys have been tireless advocates for small businesses and our city. I'd also like to thank just my board and our team, of course, and my family. So a little bit about the organization, and I want to talk about a program that we're highlighting. I'm representing Downtown Partnership, which we oversee 106 blocks. It's an improvement district in downtown Baltimore, representing property owners, businesses, 118,000 employees, 43,000 residents, and millions of annual visitors. So we provide services that make this area clean, safe, and vibrant for businesses, residents, and visitors. And our impact extends beyond downtown to the communities. We're proud that many of our frontline team members are returning citizens who we support with full benefits and a $15 an hour starting wage. And we're excited that, downtown is home to several federal agencies, thank you, thriving corporations and entrepreneurs. And although we're small in geography, we are the city's largest economic engine with jobs and tax revenues that support our businesses. So beginning with the pandemic, my team and I have been extremely busy adding new tools to support the communities, the small businesses that we're talking about, restaurants, retailers. I mean, we generated grants and gift card programs to really help pay rents, provide meals, and do those things that we know our community needed. And during the shutdown, I was asked to co-chair along with Councilman Eric Costello from Baltimore City, the Mayor's Small Business Recovery Task Force. And in this right, we were able to help coordinate the city's economic response by channeling the dollars you all provided in federal relief funds, reducing business fees, streamlining permitting, and doing things and expanding and creating opportunities like outdoor dining. What we know is the federal stimulus and assistance provided substantial infusion of resources to state and local governments to help us turn the tide of the pandemic and lay the foundation for a strong and equitable recovery. Specifically, we benefit from both PPP and EIDL, those funds, and we're excited about the potential in working with Mayor Scott's administration to advance our city with the ARPA funding you have coming. And if we could put on the record just an early support for the pending infrastructure bill. So as we recognize Small Business Week, I would like to highlight a new program that we created titled Boost. Boost stands for Black Owned and Operated Storefront Tenancy. And we created this program to do 3 things. We wanted to fill Main Street storefronts that were left empty by the pandemic. Our vacancy rates increased. We want to be intentional about accelerating the growth and success of minority businesses. And we want to make sure that we're serving as a catalyst for making downtown Baltimore more reflective of the demographics of our city. And so we launched the program in February. We've selected in this first cohort 5 Black-owned businesses to participate. Each organization receives up to $50,000 in grant funding. They get below market rents in beautiful storefronts, and they get robust training in the areas of technical, legal, accounting, and marketing. We designed this program to have a force multiplier effect on the health and wealth of our citizens, and we designed it with all of our learnings from past programs. So we see Boost as this perfect example of how public-private partnerships work. So thank you for your continued support. And in addition to what we received from public support, we had sponsoring corporations like our title sponsor, Fearless, of the program. This is a model, not just for being a title sponsor, but this is now a $40 million minority-owned firm that's headquartered in downtown Baltimore. We had other giants like Baltimore Gas and Electric, M&T Bank, T. Rowe Price Foundation, so many others who jumped in to say, how could they help, and layer on to the public support to help grow and scale our businesses. Our program is simple, and when combined with other federal and NGO programs, Boost improves the return on investment because we see these businesses as they are more likely to succeed and then hire from within the community. To highlight those winners for this first cohort, we had the Black Genius Art Show, which is a multimedia creative space and fashion brand. Codetta Bake Shop, which was just featured on Good Morning America, but this is a cafe and bakery specializing in creative desserts. Elite Secrets Bridal, a bridal design house and boutique. NKV Skin, a natural beauty company featuring both products and services. And Media Rhythm Institute, a hip hop inspired media space with a cafe and educational studio. So Vice Chair Mfume, in your opening, you asked what the committee could do to help, and I respond with three things. One, we need you to keep doing what you're doing to provide federal support. Our businesses and our communities, we need it. You can also continue to infuse downtown with federal agencies that really help catalyze the community and serve as customers for our restaurants and our retailers. And you can advocate for the continuation of programs like Boost. And so we just thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Stokes. Your time has expired. I want to thank you for being a
Thank you.
Former small business owner yourself and now a fierce advocate for small businesses, particularly here in the state of Maryland, and your work with the National Women's Business Council and all the other things are greatly appreciated by this committee. The chair would now like to recognize Ms. Natasha Hudson so that she too might be able to offer her presentation. Ms. Hudson, thank you very much for being with us. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for your admiration for small businesses. These stories so far this morning have been truly inspiring, and I feel very grateful to be a part of such a group. So let me tell you a little bit about us. It is a privilege and an honor to address you today. Thank you for listening to our story. My name is Natasha Hudson. My husband, Chad, and I own Hudson's on Mercer Street, a live music venue in Dripping Springs, Texas. Dripping Springs is a fast-growing community about 20 minutes west of Austin. It is lovingly described as west of weird. Dripping Springs is home to many local-owned wineries, breweries, distilleries, boutiques, and wedding venues, and is a great spot for tourists and locals. We started Hudson's on Mercer Street almost 6 years ago, and it has become a creative and encouraging musical hub and event center for our community. We feature local and regional acts, party bands, singer-songwriters, and open mic. We also offer music lessons for any age and skill level with an emphasis on live performance. We are all about building confidence and loving everyone who comes through our doors. Having a huge passion for our community, we never say no when asked to donate our venue to raise funds for foundations and individuals in need. Our chance to give back is what we missed the most during the pandemic closures. A music venue sounds frivolous to some, but to us, it is our dream and the way we serve our community. This venue is also the way we support our family of 5 kids and provide jobs for many to do the same. In 2020, we were shut down for nearly 7 months. By offering live streams of musical acts and virtual music lessons, we fought to keep our business afloat and help provide income for local musicians and bands who counted on us for work. But that only took us all so far. When we were near the bottom of our business and personal accounts and had gone through all personal savings to try to stay open, we were given a sign of hope when we were approached by Congressman Williams' team. They shared with us a plan that made us feel encouraged and validated. We waited eagerly for the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant to officially open their application process. We read all we could and joined webinars to help us understand what information they would be requesting. As prepared as we thought we were, and with the help of our CPA, the process was still a bit overwhelming and was difficult to navigate at times. With website complications and application dates pushed back, we grew weary. However, complications were completely understandable because this was the first time support of this stature had been offered to music venues. Thanks to the grace of God, the hard work of our brothers and sisters in Congress and the SBA, we were awarded a generous amount to cover our losses from 2020. It came in the nick of time and single-handedly put Hudson's on Mercer Street back on the map with no fear of demise. For that, we are eternally grateful. What you did for our family-owned business is incredible, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. The Shuttered Venues Operators Grant repaved the road for success and ensured that our business will remain alive and strong. We aspire to provide more community outreach and hope that the joy of music and fellowship is the legacy of Hudson's. Thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much. I've heard a lot of locations, but I've never heard west of Weird. So
Yes.
I really appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for making time to be here with us, obviously. Ms. Gina Felder is the last witness for this panel, and Ms. Felder, and I hope is it Felder or Felder?
Felder, thank you.
Felder, excuse me. Ms. Felder, thank you for your patience, and please feel free to proceed.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you, Vice Chair Fume and Mr. Lukemeyer for giving us the opportunity to present today. As CFO, I am proud to represent TJ Hale for this subcommittee meeting and appreciate the opportunity to discuss our interactions, struggles, and involvement with the SBA. As Mr. Fitzgerald explained our business, we've been in business over 70 years. We work with retail and hospitality. So as our CEO says, our business went from 60 to 0 very fast. The impact of TJ Hale from COVID-19, was catastrophic. Our annual revenues for many decades hovered around 25 to 30 million. With our revenue stream virtually dried up, open orders were canceled, completed orders that were ready to ship were put on hold. Overall, we saw an 80% reduction in revenues compared to 2019. And the majority of 2020 revenues came in the first quarter. Through our existing lender, we were able to procure a PPP loan, which was funded in April of 2020. During this process, TJ Hale had no contact with the SBA. In March of 2020, TJ Hale employed 104 employees. We struggled to or strive to maintain a skeletal crew of 40 to 50 employees to ensure that our future business activity could be managed if and when it returned. We also recognized the need to retain key employees. Throughout 2020, the company continued to fund medical insurance for all furloughed employees. During this time, we lost many talented employees who we still struggle to replace. As of the current date, we have 73 employees. On October 8th, 2020, we filed for PPP loan forgiveness with 96% of our loan projected to be forgiven. And that's where the struggles begin. In January 2021, the company filed through its current lender an application for a PPP2 loan. On January 25th, we received confirmation that our application was in the queue. Our expectation was that our PPP1 loan forgiveness and our PPP2 loan funding would occur in March of 2021. On February 5th, our lender received a request from the SBA for the forgiveness of TJ Hale's PPP loan due to some affiliation requirements. TJ Hale submitted the appropriate form 3511 on February 8th. On March 11th, the SBA requested that we resubmit the form again. And unknown to TJ Hale and our current lender, at that time, our forgiveness application was put on hold, and consequently, our funding for PPP2 was also put on hold. On May 12th, we were notified by our current lender that our PPP2 loan application had been withdrawn by the SBA because the program ran out of funding. We were then told we had until May 31st to submit a new application for funding with a community financial institution. On May 14th, we were able to connect with a CFI lender who submitted an application on our behalf. On May 18th, we received confirmation we were in the queue. Hallelujah. However, we were then again asked for the affiliation rule documentation, which we provided again. On May 24th, we were told the affiliation rule hold was still on our account. And as you may be aware, time was ticking because May 31st was the projected end date for funding. So on May 25th, we reached out to our local SBA office in Milwaukee, the entire executive board of the SBA, as well as Congressman Scott Fitzgerald's office to assist us to resolve this hold that was placed on our PPP loan that was also holding up our second loan. We were finally able to connect with Ellie Berg at the local office. However, she stated, please know the district offices do not have the ability or authority to clear any hold accounts in connection with PPP loans or applications. On June 15th, Congressman Fitzgerald's office started, excuse me, it's very emotional for me, leading the charge to assist TJ Hale. Through their efforts, the hold was finally released on June 25th, and our PPP loan was now pending validation on June 30th. The loan was finally approved. An important takeaway from this process for us is that although we are making a recovery, we are way behind pre-COVID revenue levels. The initial PPP loan was to survive as a company and secure employment and benefits for as many employees as possible. Our PPP2 loan, as we see it, is to help revive the business for 2021 and the future rebuilding to pre-COVID levels. Respecting the fact that the program was developed and rolled out in an extremely short period of time, our observation with the SBA is they would have benefited from forming some kind of SWAT team to help resolve issues with lenders and borrowers in real time. Again, thank you for the opportunity to let me share my story.
Well, thank you very, very much, Ms. Felder. It clearly sounds like it's been an emotional period and an emotional ride. Glad to know that the business is still there, though. That's the difference between so many others who have shuttered and have not been able to come back. So best of everything to you and the 73 employees that are still there with you. At this particular time, we've been rejoined by the chair of the full committee. So I'd like to recognize Chair Velasquez before we move into questions. Madam Chair, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Mfume, for yielding, and thank you for sitting on the chair today. I really appreciate all the witnesses for sharing your stories. And we all know that this has been an unprecedented crisis in our nation, the extent of which we never were prepared to face. And so let me start by asking Mr. Greenfield, a constituent from my district, the first question. And first, let me thank you for sharing your story. Last year, we fought hard to ensure our businesses could get sources of funding to maintain their workforce and keep their businesses going. Can you share with us your experience with SBA COVID-19 relief programs and the challenges you have faced during the pandemic?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So we applied for and received both PPP loans and also the EDIL loan. We're also working to get the employee retention credits. Our company was hit very hard and still hasn't resolved the issues until all in-person events, courts, and business meetings come back online. Our business is going to continue to suffer. When we applied for the forgiveness for our first PPP loan, we actually spent 200% of the loan proceeds on forgivable expenses. So it was a great help, but it didn't provide the funding needed for that 6-month period.
And so you mentioned that you were able to transition your business in the early days of the pandemic to help first responders, all while many were working from home. How was that adjustment with manufacturing employees working from home?
Well, it was very challenging. I have a lot of elderly employees, but they had sewing machines at home. I got permission from the union to do homework. all other industries were operating from home with Zoom. We can't produce things, but we can sew at home. So we were cutting the masks and bringing them to employees in their homes to sew at home and getting them back and donating them to the first responders and the frontline community. And, you know, as a clothing manufacturer in New York City, we were there and we were able to make tens of thousands of masks and hospital gowns when they were desperately needed by our community. And, you know, that's part of the value of preserving manufacturing in the inner city locations.
But the workers also step up. That's why it is so. I would like to ask you, can you explain why it's so essential to be supported by union workers, and what does this mean for the quality of your product?
Well, we always have a strong attachment to our workforce, our workers. We're a family-owned business. We're really like a family here. When my father started the business in 1977, he hired 7 people when he started, and 4 still work for us today. So our connection to our workforce is strong, and we supported them during the shutdown. They supported us, and together we were able to help support our community.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The acting chair would like to now recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mr. Lukemeyer.
Thank you, Vice Chairman and Mr. Mfume. You're doing a great job today. You're a natural for this. You're flowing very well through all of the meeting here. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. You're very kind, but I can assure you this is like being thrown in the pond. I'm just trying to stay afloat.
Well, you've got a good life preserver on then, I guess, but doing well.
Thank you.
Ms. Haviland, thank you for being here today. And, you know, as you well know, my little hometown is not very far from Lynn, Missouri, right by your company a lot as we go on Highway 50 there. Can you tell me, you know, you've survived all the years as a family-owned business. What has it been like? What kind of changes have you had to adjust to? And the environment that we're in today, what sort of changes are you making now on the fly to be able to continue to exist?
Well, today we, again, as I said, we'd like to be American made. So we are constantly trying to find suppliers that we can use that are American products or supplies that we can put into the products we do. We've been very lucky that our workforce has been very consistent. So consequently, the knowledge of making our product is very, very deep within our company. But we are always looking for maybe something new. Somebody may need a little different product. Well, we'll be happy to make and try and create that for them. And that has helped us tremendously. We went from just doing floor squeegees to windows, and also doing the blades that go on automatic floor scrubbers. And so that's been, you know, just looking ahead and trying to figure out what's the next product or project coming down the road.
Well, I know you were able to transition to be able to help the local county health department with some protective personal equipment, some washable gowns. And how'd that feel to be an essential business where you had to show up every day and be able to produce these things and be a part of the support group to try and stem the pandemic and help all of us get through that?
Well, being in the sanitary supply business, we are an essential business to begin with, but being able to reach out to the community and say, hey, this is something that we can produce for you, and feel a good feeling that everybody had that we were helping out our community to reach a level that might not have been able to be met easily. And we were able to produce that.
You know, you mentioned your testimony that you're a C Corp. I know that this over the last day or two here, we found that there's the administration and the members on the other side of the aisle are proposing a huge tax increase for C corps. How's that going to affect you? Have you looked at that yet?
I've not looked through the whole thing, but as a C Corp, when we were originally started in 1946, we only had three choices: C Corp, sole proprietorship, or partnership. And it wasn't until 58 that the S Corporation came in, but by that time we were well on our way. And it will take, if we have to look at paying a much larger tax in C corporations, small businesses are going to have a very hard time trying to increase prices and stay in business and be marketable still. And I think this is really going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I got a question along those lines. You know, you talked a while ago about some of the increased costs. I know that supply chain disruptions are part of increased costs. There's an inflationary factor across the whole board right now. How much of this can you eat, and how much of it do you have to pass on, and how competitive is your market for your products so that you at some point can't market your products because you're not competitive anymore with your pricing? Is that
well, compared to many of the people that do the squeegee business in the United States have gone to importing. Right now, they are limited in what they're able to get. We have seen some increase because of people not being able to get those imports anymore. And when that reopens, we will, be losing probably some customers because of cost prices. And if we increase our prices beyond what we can compete with, we will lose much of the increase that we plan to do for this year. And, when we're looking at 2/3 of the increase being gone just to pay taxes, that's significant.
Wow. I know you mentioned that you got some PPP funds. How instrumental were those with your company by being able to continue to exist because of those funds and your employees to continue to be employed?
We use those to the full extent. It kept everybody here employed and working throughout the pandemic, and it was forgiven. And we were very, very happy that we were able to get those.
Well, I wish you much success, continued success. We'll continue to salute you as we, help all the folks in Lynn, Missouri there. So thank you for being with us today. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The gentleman from Missouri yields back. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes. And Ms. Stokes, I'd like to come to you for a couple of quick questions, and obviously take as much time as you can within the allotted time to expand. But when I was listening to Ms. Felder from Wisconsin and all that she was going through, it occurred to me that a lot of businesses like hers have to be their own advocates. I think in her case, she was fortunate to have Representative Fitzgerald there in the 5th district to help her out. But everybody needs advocates. And since you have gone out of a small business operation and working with this National Business Council of Women, but more importantly, advocating, can you tell us what this committee or what government agencies or what other organizations might be able to do to assist you and others who go out when you're not in a congressional hearing day in and day out and fight for and work for and advocate for small businesses such as hers?
No, thank you so much. And you're really asking the number one question. Coming from being a business owner myself, I think some of what you experienced in the challenges was figuring out where information lied. Like, how could you find out where resources were available? So the first thing that you guys do, and I mentioned it earlier, making the resources available is step one. But aligning with organizations like Downtown Partnership through the SBA and the way that you do with other things is so vitally important, especially as we look to talk to individual business owners that just need help. And there's a myriad of things that they need. Some of what we learned, similar to the experience just referenced, was that people, that their doors were closing. They had no idea where to turn. In some cases, they qualified but just didn't have anybody to hold their hand throughout the process. So as a convening organization, we could step in the role of that. There are others in the city, BDC and others, who could really step in and hold hands of organizations as they did that. And so, I would just ask that as you continue to roll these out, that you align with organizations like Downtown Partnership and others who can help foster that information and share it more broadly.
And because every small business is different and located in different places throughout our country, rural or urban or east, west, north, south, are there some fundamental basics and universality that you could or think you should recommend for businesses, particularly those who may be watching this and not participating, or even for those who are on this particular panel who work so hard to advocate on behalf of themselves? Are there some rules to this, some key points that we ought to keep in front of us?
Right. The one of the biggest lessons I think that we learned, and a lot of this, Vice Chair Mfume, also came from the work that we've done with the National Women's Business Council. And for all of it, it is leveraging what exists. The SBA is a great starting point for some of the information that is available to these businesses. But more importantly, I think as they go through all of this, no doesn't necessarily mean no in this, right? I mean, we are, as Downtown Partnership, a 501c6 organization who in the first round of PPP did not qualify. And so having, advocacy and all of those types of things, really being able to tell the stories as you allowed us as businesses to share today, help you all see where other areas can be. And so if there is a need, galvanizing and aligning with other organizations to get the message out so that we can get that to you, so that those initial no's can be shifted or maybe given in other ways, is extremely important.
Thank you very much. I get the sense that a lot of those stories are reflected in Ms. Greenfield and Mr. Greenfield and Ms. Haviland's comments before us. In both of those instances, these businesses have been around for generations and had to advocate, particularly then when nobody else would. So I'm just hoping that this testimony is reproduced and made available for people, particularly made available for the SBA and others who oftentimes are looking for ways, I hope, to continue to advocate for and to help businesses, particularly those who run up against bureaucracies and can't seem to get a lot done. So my time has expired. I want to thank you very much, Ms. Stokes. The chair would like to now recognize the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started, I'd like to say to everybody on this call, we need to cut taxes. We do not need to raise taxes for small business. Ms. Hudson, good to have you with us. And the Shuttered Venue Grant Program recognizes that businesses like yours were some of the first to close and the last to open as a result of the COVID-19 we saw. Even with the SBA disastrous rollout, I applaud you for being so resilient and reopening your doors. I know that the SVOG grant was a huge lifeline for Hudson's on Mercer, along with thousands of other venues. I'm thankful you were able to weather the SBA's incompetence and keep your doors open. It's community-driven business owners like yourself who are going to rebuild Main Street America and regrow our economy. So my first question to you is, I just want to give you a moment to elaborate on how the grant helped your venue recover and how business has grown since the reopening.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. One of the blessings has been to be able to pay rent and utilities consistently and not have that worry in the back of our mind of how are we going to get there to the next month. Another thing is being able to hire more staff again and get them working and needing a bigger staff because we're able to hire bigger bands and musicians and work them again on stage. They bring in a crowd and we all work together to generate income for each other. So that the grant made that able to get started again. So that's been wonderful.
In your testimony, you mentioned some complications with the SVOG application process. Unfortunately, it is not uncommon to hear that Biden's SBA has been difficult to work with. I hear from countless businesses in my district about lack of communication and inconsistent updates from the SBA that have kept many of you in the dark. Now, while I'm glad to hear you finally received an award after months of waiting, these issues still need to be addressed and resolved for those who have not. So, Ms. Hudson, can you discuss your personal experience with the SVOG application process and how responsive the SBA was to your inquiries?
Yes, sir. It was probably the most unclear, confusing experience that I've had, even though I'm very grateful that it did all work out in the end. Even getting into the website to be able to fill out the application came with many steps that were unclear, and it was hard to dig through other websites to find what information you would need. So it was challenging to get even into the website. And then the application itself was very thorough, and that makes sense. They want to make sure we are a legitimate business and our numbers need to be accurate and all of that, but it was a lot of information needed, and sometimes information that we didn't know we needed beforehand. So, and then there was the delay with the website too. So it was all pretty challenging.
One of the reasons this grant program was so impactful is because your business does more than just provide musicians with a platform to perform. Hudson's of Mercer provides a wide range of services to the community, from giving music lessons to inspiring artists, to provide a venue for local foundations to raise money and make an impact on a variety of causes. And I want to say thank you for your contributions to the 25th District of Texas and all the work you have done in the community. And I would just ask, can you expand on some of the other ways that Hudson's reopening has influenced your local community?
Yes, sir. We are back to partnering with foundations. In fact, this Saturday, we are joining up with an organization who raises money for cancer patients and their families for alternative methods of healing. So those are the things that we really strive to focus on. And so we're able to do that again. We're bringing music into our town all the time. People are here and being able to perform and getting the joy of music. Our music lessons are back full speed in person and virtually. And that gives our students an outlet to perform for 200 or more guests a couple times a month. So those, as young performers, that is wonderful experience for them. So that is definitely one of the beautiful parts of being open again.
Well, you can't do it closed. You've been a great witness, as has everybody. And I just want to close by saying we need to always consider cutting your taxes, not raising your taxes. With that, I yield my time back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back the remainder of his time. Thank you very much again, Ms. Hudson. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to once again thank Gina for being here today. I think many of the members of the Small Business Committee, especially in the last couple of months, we've been focused on, for the most part, numbers and cases. And I've had a couple of experiences, and again, you can just tell the emotion that's in Gina's voice this morning. I met with the Wisconsin Bankers Association about a week ago, and one of the bankers there, who it's a medium-sized bank, and he literally was trying to explain to me at one point in February of 2020 when they had hundreds of people that there were customers of theirs for many, many years. And he was losing sleep, wondering if any of them would be able to survive this. And he explained it was only through the PPP loans that they did. And, with literally hundreds of files on their conference table, at one of the banks, he said, I just didn't know if they were going to make it. So I think it's important for us to remember the human element in all this and how difficult and gut-wrenching this would be. And I appreciate all the small business owners. I once was a small business owner. And, I realized that the proprietor, that the owner, that the boss is sometimes the last person in line. And that's hard to go home and tell your spouse that, well, there may or may not be a paycheck next week. So I understand kind of what you're going through. I'll just say this, and I wanted to ask Gina kind of where we're at. In many instances, it looks like the loans went out, no matter how difficult it was to acquire them, to accommodate them. And now we're in this phase of the forgiveness part. And I'm just as worried about this with the amount of red tape that currently exists and how we're going to work through that. So Gina, can you just explain kind of what your experience is so far on the loan forgiveness part of this?
Sure. TJ Hale is in 2013 was bought about 70% by a private equity firm. So that's where I was mentioning before the affiliation rules, because the affiliation rules say you have to have under 500 employees. So we had to prove to the SBA that we were considered, our investment company is considered a small business investment company, or SBIC, licensed by the SBA. So TJ Hale was not subject to that affiliation rule. So the form 3511 that I mentioned before has four ways you can be waived. And the third waiver on that form is, are you funded by a SBIC company, which we checked yes to the box. And the instructions say, if you answer yes, you don't need to complete any other sections of the form. So we did that, submitted that, thought we were on our way. So for 2 months, we thought everything was being processed. Our bank actually submitted the forgiveness application in November. And it wasn't until February that they received any communication that there was any issues with the forgiveness being processed. And that, of course, like I said, held up the PPP2 loan. We couldn't get financial statements issued because, you know, we were banking on the forgiveness. So we were doing financial modeling based on that. So, and it really took until the end of May for that finally to be lifted, and only throughout, we believe, efforts through Shannon at your office, helping guide that process for us.
Yeah, thank you. That kind of is my point. And I would just say to the chairman and the ranking member, I mean, I think part of what this committee's oversight should be is to kind of bird dog this process all the way up to the end to make sure that the SBA is doing the due diligence on the follow-up. I really think that, you know, the members of Congress, we can have an impact on that, but this committee should be higher profile and really watch this closely. So, and I know we have no time left, so I would absolutely love to hear comments though on that in the future. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. The committee is just about expired. It's allotted time for this first panel. I want to thank the entire panel, all of you, for bringing with you 5 different stories for this committee to hear and to understand and to be a part of the public record. We hope that persons who have been watching this have learned something and gained something, but most of all, we hope that all of you will continue to do what you do, because you really do represent in many respects the real backbone of businesses that we can't always see and don't always know about. Some of you are nameless and faceless, but your stories are really monumental in terms of what they do in the aggregate to hold this country together. So I thank you for your time. All of you are free to exit the Zoom platform now if you'd like, and to continue to watch by way of streaming. And I also want to just thank the members on both sides of the committee, particularly Mr. Lukemeyer, the ranking member, for their patience with me today as we try to get through this first round together. And at this particular point in time, I'd like to yield to the distinguished woman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Chrissy Houlihan, who will now chair and guide the second panel.
Thank you, Representative Mfume. And my name is Chrissy Houlihan. I represent Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District just outside of Philadelphia. It's my pleasure to begin panel 2. And I will begin right away since we're a little bit behind by saying, of course, welcome. And let me yield first to Ms. Craig, who will introduce our first witness.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for yielding. And thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. I'm really pleased that we're holding this great bipartisan hearing to honor our nation's small business heroes and especially to listen to every single one of you. I'm very proud to support the bipartisan resolution recognizing this week as National Small Business Week. Small businesses employ over 130,000 employees in my district across all professions. I'm proud of the work of this committee and Congress has done, especially over the last 18 months, to bring aid to our local business owners, but I know that there is more to be done. I am so proud to introduce here today a constituent and business owner from my district, Eric Childs. He owns Mind's Eye Comics. And Eric, I'm so pleased to have you here from Mind's Eye Comics here this morning. I'm especially grateful to Eric for serving on my newly formed small business task force with a diverse set of other small business owners from across Minnesota's second district, representing industries from breweries to manufacturing to technology solutions. In fact, we're holding our first meeting of my small business task force tomorrow during Small Business Week in Lakeville. Today, I'm looking forward to hearing more about how Eric's decision to buy Mind's Eye as a longtime patron was an opportunity to build community and how he's been able to bring our community together at Mind's Eye Comics, especially through the last 18 months. Thank you so much, Mr. Childs, and welcome. Really appreciate you serving as a witness today. With that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Craig. And I'd now like to yield to our ranking member, Mr. Hagedorn, to introduce our next witness.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I'm honored today to introduce Ms. Crystal Hernandez, owner of the well-known and much-loved Mexican restaurant La Plaza Fiesta in Medelia, Minnesota. Medelia, a town of about 2,500 people. And it's really just one of the finest establishments that we have in our district. And we're so honored to have Ms. Hernandez with us. She also owns a grocery store right next door. So she's been expanding her business. And I think there's even more to talk about as far as maybe moving into other locations. We'll get into that. Through many trials and tribulations, including a devastating fire that wiped out about 8 businesses in Medelia's Main Street in 2016. And then, of course, the recent obstacles with COVID and everything. Ms. Hernandez has worked hard to build a terrific small business, and she and her husband and others have worked tirelessly utilizing her business at La Plaza Fiesta as a means of bringing the entire community in Medelia together. And I've said it many times, our small businesses are the people on the ground that have the most to gain and also the most to provide and to give to our communities to keep them going. And that's why it's so important that we do everything possible to help them keep rolling along. Instead of promoting an environment that views, competition as hostile, La Plaza Fiesta and the team are working with surrounding restaurants, and they kind of feed off each other. If one restaurant needs something, they help out and vice versa. And that's exactly the type of thing we need to be seeing in order to build all of our communities across the board. It's this type of attitude, love of community, and great food and drink. I tell you, I have full disclosure. I've been there several times. It's a great spot to eat and drink. That is allowing La Plaza Fiesta to expand to a second location. They've taken all that they've done and they're moving to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Not moving, but they're expanding to Sioux Falls. So we congratulate Ms. Hernandez on that. We're so blessed to have integral members of our community like Ms. Hernandez that make Minnesota's rural downtown so special and vibrant and resilient, and no matter what the world throws at them. And this is so important to keep our rural economy rolling. So without further ado, I'd like to first congratulate again Ms. Hernandez and her team at La Plaza Fiesta for all their success and welcome her to testify in our National Small Business hearing today. Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hagedorn. And now I'd like to yield to Ms. Bordeaux to introduce our next witness.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. It's wonderful to hear from small business owners from across the country about their stories and the contributions they make to their communities. I am extremely
Representative
proud.
Bordeaux,
Oh,
you may have two sound versions on right now.
I'm sorry. I'll be right back. I've got to reboot. Sorry. One sec. Why don't you move on to the next one, and then I'll be back.
All right.
It'll take 10 minutes.
I'll now yield to Mr. Stauber to introduce our next witness, and we'll come back to Representative Bordeaux.
Thank you very much. And I'm very excited to introduce the witness from Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, Mark Lundy. Mark started Lundy Auto Sales in Wadena, Minnesota in 2016, a used car dealership with 9 employees between their 2 stores. Lundy Auto Sales provides a personal touch to the car shopping experience. Lundy Auto Sales has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, a testament to Mark's leadership. Mark is an active member in his community, serving as a City of Wadena City Councilor, a member of the Wadena Housing and Redevelopment Board, a member of the Tri-County Hospital Foundation Board, and a member of the Wadena Hockey Association Board. Thank you, Mark, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your testimony with us today, and I look forward to questions and answer, and I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stauber, and I'll circle back around to Ms. Bordeaux to Ms. Bordeaux to introduce her witness. Looks like she might not be back, so I will yield now to Mr. Muser to introduce a witness as well.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman Houlihan. I appreciate it very much. I'm about to introduce someone who's no stranger to you either. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Barry Schlouk, a fantastic business, small business person, as my witness for today's hearing. Mr. Barry Schlouk and his wife, Deb, founded Schlouk Incorporated, a site design and heavy civil construction firm headquartered in Blandon, Pennsylvania, in my district, Chairwoman. Many employees from yours as well. Barry and Deb founded Schlouk Incorporated in 1983 in the basement of their home in Berks County, Pennsylvania, a fantastic American business story. That year, they won their first job, which I was told a couple of times how excited they were, a $15,000 contract to prepare a site to construct a Wendy's restaurant. Today, Schlouk Incorporated employs over 285 people and is known as the leading total site preparation specialist in Eastern and most of Pennsylvania, I believe, serving many local, regional, and national customers. Since forming Schlouk Incorporated, Barry and Deb have created conscientious relationships between employees and customers alike, while providing excellent quality of work to their customers. Creating a safe environment for employees and customers has been of the utmost importance to Schlouk Incorporated, and it shows in every day of their work. As Barry states in his testimony and will, his company has 3 main priorities: safety of the people, safety of the people, safety of his people. Over the last 38 years, Barry has not only built an incredibly successful business that employs hundreds of people, but he has set an incredible example for small businesses across the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I will just add that knowing Barry and the trials and tribulations and accomplishments they've had, they've been very strategic, very thoughtful. They certainly work hard, but they work smart. Caring is a big part of what their company culture is about, certainly for the long-term interest of the business itself, of its employees. I've actually attended a morning huddle where they very happily join about 6 a.m. As the day begins in that line of work. They care for their customers, they care for their payers, and they care tremendously for our community. Again, as you well know, Madam Chair, nothing special occurs throughout Berks County and surrounding counties without usually Barry's involvement. Barry, I thank you for the excellence you bring to our community as both an employer and as a leader in our community. And I look forward to your testimony and sharing your experiences with us. And I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Muser, and welcome to my neighbor, Barry. And with that, I'll yield back to Representative Bordeaux to introduce our final panelist.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Sorry about that. The brave new world of Zoom here. Thank you again to our witnesses for joining today's hearing. And it is so wonderful to hear from our small business owners across the country, to hear about their stories and their contributions to their communities. I'm extremely proud to have Maurice Contreras of Volcanica Coffee, which is headquartered in Suwanee, Georgia, and to hear his testimony today. He is one of the many very diverse small business owners that we have throughout Georgia's 7th District. Maurice started Volcanica Coffee after visiting his homeland in Costa Rica. While he was there, he saw an opportunity to import great tasting coffee from volcanic regions, such as in Costa Rica, to consumers. The company started part-time in his garage and now operates a coffee plant near Atlanta, Georgia, with 20 employees that includes his wife and his 2 children. I met Maurice during a manufacturers roundtable held in my district during the August district work period, and I'm extremely proud and grateful to have him join us today. And coffee drinking is being sort of one of my key vices, and so it is particularly relevant in a business that I deeply appreciate. Thank you, Maurice, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I look forward to hearing your testimony.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move over to our panelists' testimony. And I will now recognize Mr. Childs for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Houlihan and Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Luckmeyer, and other members of the House Committee on Small Business for this opportunity to share my testimony today. Also, thank you to Representative Craig for the invitation to testify at today's small business hearing. This is truly an honor and a privilege to be a participant in representing the small businesses of Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District and residing city, Burnsville. Today, I'll do my best to express a few moments significant to my journey in hope to convey who I am and how I came to be the proprietor owner of Mind's Eye Comics, and the positive difference I choose to make in my community utilizing my business. Early on in my life, I was encouraged. I was taught that I could be anything I aspired to be and achieve anything I put my mind to. All that's required is a little hard work and dedication. Simple but powerful concepts. These ideas reinforced in faith and a belief that God has purpose for each of us. For these lessons, I am extremely grateful. Thank you, Herbert Logan Childs and Barbara Sue Childs, my parents. Thank you for your wisdom, integrity, character, and belief in me. Thank you, Ms. Devani, for seeing the value in all your 4th grade students, including myself. Thank you for being willing to sacrifice your own hard-earned money for your class and on occasion, even your personal time, all to find a way to engage, help, and encourage each of us. For me, it was comic books you would discover to be the catalyst for completed assignments and instilling a passion for reading. Thank you, Dr. Helgeson, my high school humanities instructor, for showing us there is greatness in all of us and celebrating all cultures in your class. Each one of these individuals have impacted my life tremendously and left a lasting impression on me. One of positivity, inspiration, encouragement, and a belief that we're all connected and can make a positive difference in the lives of others. I share these personal insights of my past influences first, because these are the philosophies and the beliefs at the core of the businessman before you today. These ideas would prove to be instrumental to the future core purpose of Mind's Eye Comics and would be put to the test beginning a little over 3 years ago after acquiring the business in 2018. Mind's Eye Comics first opened in 1998 by Mr. Andrew Troth. Troth established the comic shop, in my opinion, that finally showcased the medium in the way it deserved, much like any other respectable bookstore. Beautiful layout, clean, well-organized space would become my favorite comic bookstore in Minnesota. With excellent customer service, a welcoming atmosphere, and a wide selection, Andrew truly had raised the bar on what it meant to be a comic shop. For 20 years, I was a patron of Mind's Eye Comics. Later in life would become the place I brought my own children to encourage their reading. In 2018, Mr. Troth announced he planned to retire and would be closing the store. I couldn't watch the place that was so important to so many and so unique in our community to come to an end. I couldn't accept it, so much so that I asked Mr. Troth if he'd consider selling the store, to which he replied, no, unless, of course, you're inquiring for yourself. He says, for you, Eric, I would consider it, as your heart's in the right place. This marks the beginning of the next chapter. The baton has been passed. Thank you, Mr. Troth, for trusting me with what you started and considering me a worthy ambassador of this truly unique and special place of culture, imagination, and creativity. Now, instead of closure, I saw opportunity. I saw an opportunity to build community, inspire and enrich the lives of others. Mind's Eye Comics now advocates for literacy, makes Black history more accessible through graphic novels, assists educators in discovering alternate graphic source materials to coursework, provides an outlet for the works of independent and minority creative teams, and still serves as your community hub of all things geek. So in closing, I'd like to share a story from my first summer open in 2018. Two young boys, no older than 12 years of age, came in and began, just excitedly perusing the comics on the shelves, one of which, after making his purchase, rushed over to our nook and began reading, completely captivated and flipping through the pages. The other young man soon came over and joined his friend that was reading, and he asked his friend, he said, is your mom going to be okay with you spending all of your money on these comics? To which he replied, she's always trying to get me to read. I'm reading. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you. And from a former educator and somebody who spent a lot of time on childhood literacy, I really appreciate the story and also really appreciate your shout outs to all of your educators and teachers in your past. And thank you again, Mr. Childs. Ms. Hernandez, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here, and I just wanted to say thank you for letting us be here. Like Representative Hagedorn said, that I am Crystal Hernandez. I'm the owner of the La Plaza Fiesta and Fiesta Market, which is located in Medelia, Minnesota, which is about a population of 2,500. And my husband and I purchased the restaurant in 2012. And we pride ourselves on providing a welcoming atmosphere with fresh made meals. We are committed to ensure each visitor enjoys their experience and their meal when they come in our doors. And we want to help keep Medelia a destination in southern Minnesota. You might be looking at me wondering why I have a Mexican restaurant, but I've always had a dream of owning a restaurant since I was little. I came from a family that we didn't get to go out to eat very often. We didn't have a lot of money. And I always, I came from a very hardworking family as well. My parents always had 2 or 3 jobs. And the day came when I was 14 years old that I had to get my first job to help with family bills to keep our house. And it was a dishwasher job. And from there, I guess the rest is history, you could say. I fell in love with the restaurant business, and I've worked my way up. And I met my husband at a Mexican restaurant that I worked at in Ortana, Minnesota. And the last 10 years that we've been in business has been full of challenges, from a devastating fire to a global pandemic. But one thing has stayed consistent. We've learned valuable lessons through all of it and have come out stronger in the end because of it. For the longevity of the business, we've learned how to pivot and overcome the crazy obstacles put in our way. And we have been grateful for the community we live in. We are who we are because of our amazing support system here in Medelia and the surrounding areas. And it is important in a small town to come together and raise each other up in any way. And we have been a witness of that because all of the businesses in our town have supported us from day one. And Medelia is such a special town because of our like-minded mindsets. We have amazing businesses who faithfully support one another. In February 2016, I was 8 months pregnant with our first child. And 8 other businesses on Medelia's historic Main Street were engulfed in flames and reduced to rubble. It was a devastating blow to our established location that we have worked my entire life for to create. And with the help of charitable donations, our strong faith, community outreach and involvement, positive mindsets, and a lot of people in the mix, we were able to temporarily relocate at the Medelia Golf Course while we rebuilt our restaurant on Main Street. The restaurant's never been an easy business to be in, but our passion for serving and cooking meals makes it all worth it at the end. As we are recovering and overcoming the fire, the global pandemic happened, as we all know. And this was hard because everything was and sometimes still is unknown. We worked really hard to pivot our menu, pay our staff, because we knew if we would lose them, we lose Plaza, and just take one day at a time. We prayed a lot. Our faith is everything. Seriously, we were fortunate, to survive through it all. But that was a big help because of the PPP loans and the restaurant revitalization funds. I know we wouldn't have the same outcome if it wasn't for that. Sorry. We've gone from a staff of 5 people to 30, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And they are the backbone of who we are. And because of our success today, so without them, we would be nothing. Some of them have been with us since day one and have endured every challenge with us by my side. I honestly love what I do, and I love sharing it with the people who help me along the way. And my biggest passion is to teach people about other cultures and to mix cultures together into a community. We are planning on opening a second location for the restaurant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, starting in January of 2022. And we are partnering with some friends that are eager to mix both of our passions and our experience together into one beautiful location. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for that really passionate testimony. Mr. Contreras, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Lukemire, and members of the committee, and Congresswoman Bordeaux. My name is Maurice Contreras, the CEO and founder of Volcanica Coffee. We are a specialty coffee roaster of exotic imported coffee from volcanic regions from around the world. I am honored to come before this committee to tell you about our company. We are a family-owned business that I started in the garage of our home 17 years ago. It all began after frequent family vacations to my homeland in Costa Rica. During one of those vacations, I realized there was an opportunity to import, teach, and introduce great tasting coffee to the US. Coffee had always been in my blood and has been in our family for at least 2 generations, starting when my mother and grandfather would assist in the harvesting of coffee beans high in the mountains of Costa Rica. Volcanica Coffee started out as a part-time side business, but we now operate a large coffee roasting plant near Atlanta in Suwanee, Georgia, with 20 employees that includes my wife, Diane, and our son, Aaron, and daughter, Adriana. When I started the business in 2004, it required a lot of work and research. I had to learn how to build a website, how to drive traffic through borrowing books from the website. I spent many early mornings and evening hours building the business. I will tell you, it was not an overnight success, but even with limited time to work on it, it grew every year to the point that I could leave my corporate job in the wireless telecommunications industry and focus on growing the business full time. Today, we carry over 150 different coffees imported from volcanic regions from around the world. Our focus is on high quality, using the latest coffee roasting machines manufactured in the USA that have low emissions. We have various quality control measurements in place to ensure that we only ship great tasting coffee, and we offer 100% customer satisfaction. Volcanica Coffee carries a broad line of estate, pea berry, decaf, and flavored coffees. We fresh roast and quickly ship to consumers around the world. Our website offers subscription programs and individual purchases, and we are also available on Amazon. Specialty coffee has been a growing trend, and many consumers have been discovering that coffee can be enjoyed much like a fine wine, with various flavor notes depending on the region and roasting techniques. Coffee is much more than just a drink to make you alert. The coffees we import are from mineral-rich soil that are very aromatic with a remarkable taste and are also kosher certified. We've been growing very rapidly as consumer preferences have shifted to brewing high-quality home coffee at home. We are honored that last month we were ranked number 514 on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing private companies in the US by Inc. magazine. Just this month, we moved into a larger coffee plant, nearly doubling our capacity to accommodate our growth. We have been blessed, and giving back is very important to us. So we donate 1% of our website retail sales to the organization called Charity Water, which brings clean, safe water to communities around the world. Over 7 million people now have access to clean water through projects funded by Charity Water. We also donate to local charities and first responders. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that we have here in the United States to be able to experience the American dream. I'm also grateful to be able to build a business with our family and to provide employment opportunities for our members. Thank you, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. I really appreciate your testimony as well. Mr. Lund, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You are now recognized for 5 minutes as well.
Thank you. It's Mark Lundy.
Lundy.
You bet. Thank you. And thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez and the Small Business Committee for having us here today. I actually have 3 broader topics. While our exact business challenges and opportunities are always a moving target, I've got 3 broader topics I wanted to comment on. And one is the federal minimum wage and how it affects us as a small business. While I agree a livable wage is certainly the goal and aspiration of every American, many experts agree, and most data suggests that even $15 an hour is not a livable wage in most parts of the country. And across the board mandates, which are another real life example of an unfunded mandate to a private business, while they do have limits and exclusions, are harmful to competition, and specifically in rural markets where I live. Furthermore, they stifle new opportunity and training opportunities for people entering the workforce. And wanted to give an example of an 18-year-old that we recently hired, a high school graduate who chose not to enter college and chose to enter the workforce with us. And had we been forced to pay him $15 an hour or more with a mandate, we wouldn't be able to hire him. And in the time he's worked full time for us, starting at $10 an hour, he's earned 2 raises, been placed on a monthly bonus program, which puts his pay much higher than per hour minimum that could be proposed. And I believe that wages, like prices, should be set, corrected, and moved by the market, with all moving parts considering job types, parts of the country, parts of the area that you live in. Employers in 2021 should be as aggressive as ever to push wages upward, and those that aren't will be out of business pretty swiftly. Following the pandemic, the underserved markets such as hospitality, retail, restaurant, several others like that, they've all seen huge spikes in their human resource expenses. And while we certainly want to avoid inflation, some view this as simple market correction. And many of these sectors' employees and former employees have taken this time to go back to school or seek other opportunities altogether. And so with that, that's that one. The other big one for us in rural Minnesota, at least, and I think across the nation as I read, is affordable daycare. This is a huge stumbling block for economic development in the country, let alone in rural America. In fact, according to the Committee for Economic Development's report of childcare in state economies, in 2019, there were 674,000 childcare programs in the United States with revenues of $47 billion, employing 1.5 million workers. And the spillover impact of those programs generated an additional $52 billion in local economies. And regarding employment, beyond direct jobs in that industry, an additional 507,000 jobs are supported within communities, leading to an overall jobs impact of 2 million workers. Now, obviously, these numbers have been hugely affected by the pandemic. And just in our small area, I know of 3 different home-based and small daycare centers that called it quits early in the pandemic and shut their doors for good for one reason or another. According to Randy Antopoulos of the Levi Institute, they estimate that following the Great Recession, had investments in care infrastructure been in conjunction with the investments in physical infrastructure, they would have yielded twice as many new jobs as the latter investments alone. Particularly in rural America, where I live, there again, we have a huge hill to climb in the way of economic development and getting people back to work. And part of that is investing seriously in daycare, home-based childcare, and after-school programs. Thirdly, is kind of something that seems to be winding down, which is unemployment benefits or extended benefits. All of the like are kind of lumped in here. And again, while totally necessary in the full throes of the pandemic and uncertain times, mandated shutdowns and the like, this has become a joke in many areas. Many, if not most businesses I know of, up and down Main Street, factories, offices alike are in desperate need of employees. Businesses are changing models, hours, and even services because of lack of available workforce. Meanwhile, those same able-bodied workers are or were collecting checks versus working. Some call this a work ethic issue. Some call it a government handout. I call it just bad for business. In 25 years of business, I've never dreamed that I would literally have to compete with unemployment compensation to attract and retain employees. I believe any and all forms of this must come to an end really quickly so we can get back to work. Those are my topics. Again, I thank the committee for having all of us and open any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lundy, for your testimony as well. Mr. Barry Schlouk, I know I never pronounced that right. You are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Houlihan, and thank you, Representative Muser, for inviting us. And thank you to all the representatives for taking this time to listen to small business. And congratulations to all my peers for the courage and the willingness to come on and share your story. I've got like 4 pages of notes myself of learning. So with that, I hope you've all played Monopoly. And I hope you landed on Reading Railroad. Okay, that's where I live, Reading Railroad, Reading, PA. And we're in the process of restoring rail from Reading to Philadelphia, which I'm very involved in. So stay tuned to hear more about that. Back to the 3 things. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Congressman Muser. I'm not going to kind of go through our background, but we did start straight out of our basement in 1983 as a 25-year-old and a 23-year-old next to me, my wife. And we built this company from a capital investment of $2,000 to we'll do about $1.7 billion in business collectively over the 38 years. And we're doing about $100 million a year now. So amen for America. I mean, where else could you do that? It's America. So I feel the dream is alive and well. Our daughter is positioned for success. She's 39 years old. She'll be the proud leader of a women in construction, women and men in construction. So it proves out that women can succeed as well. And Stacy's a role model. I want to talk about the 3 things of safety. The first priority, safety, the second priority, safety, the third priority, safety, and how it can transform every business. So that's what we do at Schlouk. And really to work safe and be safe, it takes a tremendous commitment. It takes leadership, it takes standards, it takes process, it takes training, it takes execution, and it takes accountability. So we're faced with what's called the fatal 4 every day, which is electrical falls, struck by and caught between. So our company was positioned for success for the pandemic, not knowing it. And believe me, I could do without this pandemic. So when it came about in February last year, and we got word of this and we got information, we created what we call the fatal 5. I told you what the fatal 4 is. The fatal 5th is COVID-19. So we go every day for 0 injuries every day. Okay, and we've gone sometimes over years with no injuries. Our goal was 0 COVID-19. Now people are like, wow, that's impossible. Well, we ran all the way with 285 employees and families through Thanksgiving 2020 with 0 COVID-19. Okay, but we followed the process. We had the standard, we had the accountability, we were trained. When the governor shut down our business, he felt that was best for the state. Construction got shut down. Thanks to Congressman Muser, I got to speak with them, and we repositioned them for success and reopened construction safely 6 weeks later. But I had to prove to the governor and his team that we could do it safely, and we have. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the things that we're doing. So this morning, I started with an app on my phone. This is how day starts. I have an app. I answer the questions, symptoms, anybody positive. That app goes into all 285. If we got yes to any question, boom, we contact trace right away, and boom, we quarantine or whatever is necessary. A couple weeks ago, I live on a 70-acre farm with my wife here, and I was out cutting hay, and I get a call from my IT guy. Said, "Hey, do you have your laptop?" "Yeah." "Wipe it down." The IT department, a mother of one of the people had tested positive, touched my computer, wipe it down. That's the degree of what we're doing today. Okay, so I'm asking government to listen to us, trust us, empower us. We got it. Okay, and I've asked Governor Wolf the same thing. I know you're trying to help us, but mandates really create distrust. It widens the gap. I spent all day yesterday mitigating the president's speech last week because I'm vaccinated and we have a lot of vaccinated people, but not everybody's vaccinated. We got this, and now the unvaccinated people, when this plays out, are going to have to prove to me every week that they're not positive by getting a test. They got to prove it to me. Okay, that doesn't build trust. It doesn't build cohesiveness, and there are ways that we can do it, and I've shared it with you, that we're already doing. I wanted to share with you also, the online training has been great. The working from home has been great. We're continuing it. And I know I'm running out of time, and we're promoting it. So there's been international articles on the details of what we're doing. As a company, we want to take the success, share it, and we want to get to zero COVID-19 for the country.
Thank you so much, Barry. I really appreciate your testimony and insight as always. That concludes the opening remarks of all of our panelists, and we'll now move on to member questions, and we'll be alternating back and forth between sides. And so I will first recognize Ranking Member Mr. Hagedorn for 5 minutes. Mr. Hagedorn, are you still on? I don't see him, so I will go on instead to Ms. Bordeaux next.
Thank you so much. Maurice, thank you so much for joining the committee today. And just thought I'd talk a little bit more about your experience. One of the things we talk about a lot in this committee is how do we help support small businesses as they are getting started, and then how do we support them as they are growing. And so just to start off, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey. You had a successful career prior to starting your business. What made you start a small business, and what obstacles did you face to getting up and running? And you need to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. So when we got started, I started it only with $5,000, which was good on a virtual company, on a website. But when we moved into the manufacturing plant, it required several $100,000 in equipment, and the tax laws that had been in place for small businesses, especially C Corp, were very favorable to us and really allowed us to be able to buy new equipment, build out the plants, and even as our business grew, we invested more and more and more, and our tax liability wasn't as great because of the laws, and that really helped us tremendously. Part of the reason why I started the business was somewhat as I wanted to create a legacy for our family and do something else, not just work for large corporations. And so at first it was kind of toying around and just figuring out what would work. Coffee was not my first thing. It did a couple of other things, but it was really that. It was knowing that long term, to build a business and to have the American dream really was attainable, but it just required a lot of work and action to get started and do it.
And just along those lines, what have been some of the biggest challenges as you have gotten bigger? So the sort of, getting started, you had the capital and the resources to get there, but you have now expanded and grown. And has that been a smooth process, or are there things that we need to be thinking about as a committee to help promote small businesses and to help them to grow?
Yeah, it's funny, every time I think that we're going to get to a plateau where, okay, all right, now we can relax and maybe enjoy some of our fruits. It's now I have to spend another 40,000 here, another 60,000 here, another 100,000. So it's what would be very helpful is just to have availability to access credit for small businesses. It has been difficult. Even we don't even have a line of credit yet with our existing bank that we've been doing business with since the beginning. Hopefully that's going to come together, but something to be able to to help us make those initial investments. That would definitely help. And then the other thing right now, which has already been mentioned, is the issue that everybody has with employment. Hopefully that's going to end. I know a lot of the programs that are in place have ended, but it really is a struggle. And anything that could be done on your all's end to get the people that are on the social payrolls to come back to work would be very beneficial to us.
Well, thank you very much for your time and for coming, and many best wishes for the future growth and success of your company.
Thank you.
Does the gentlelady yield back?
I yield back, yes, thank you.
The gentlelady yields back, and I now recognize the gentleman from Minnesota for 5 minutes, Mr. Stauber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lundy, from your testimony, it sounds like you believe the federal government often gets in the way of small business success. As a small business owner myself, I agree with you. Is there anything that you think the government is getting right at the moment, i.e. a tax policy or SBA assistance program?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman Stauber. I do. First of all, I think the steps taken by this very committee just last week in advancing the $25 billion legislation to help small businesses directly is a huge step. I've had an opportunity to review that legislation, and so many times they're so packed filled with different small little programs that don't actually affect anything and don't really get the money where it goes or where it should be going. In this case, I believe it does. And furthermore, for all the complaining I've heard about the SBA over the last 17, 18 months, I think with the huge job that they had to do, getting funds into bank accounts to get people's health insurance and to get people's paychecks paid, they've just done a fabulous job, and obviously not flawless, but I think they've done a wonderful job of helping the American businesses, what they're there to do.
Thank you very much. And then let's go to the business you're involved in. With reports of used cars up 41% due to inflation, have you begun to feel the impacts on your business? And are there adjustments you are already planning to make in the wake of inflation?
Sure. Yeah. Another great question. New and used car inventories seem to be a topic on a lot of people's minds lately. You see it on the news a lot, on the Facebooks of the world. We've certainly seen higher wholesale prices at auctions, and we buy a lot of vehicles from around the country, and we see it pretty much coast to coast. And so, with that, yes, of course, the higher wholesale prices is going to translate to higher retail prices. With the major manufacturers, stall in manufacturing, obviously the big stores, the big franchise dealers and whatnot are consuming a lot of what would normally be left for independents like myself. And so that, of course, means more competition equals higher prices for the consumer buying a car. Yeah, we are seeing that. We're seeing higher prices. Obviously, that will lead to inflation. I don't know if that's a temporary inflation, but for now, the market of used cars especially is up, and the market for new cars is practically non-existent.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the concerns for new cars, Mr. Lundy, is the chip shortage, and the chip shortage is many of them are made in the communist country of China that are holding up the auto dealers from getting their new chips. We're hearing dealerships that normally get 40, 50 cars a month are getting 2 or 3 new cars just because of the chip shortage. And I think that's where we, in America, we can mine the critical minerals and rare earths, manufacture, make those chips here. So the supply chain dependency is in our own hands. We're learning from COVID so many things, including supply chain dependency, which would help. And then the last question is, are there any major concerns that you are having with discussions and rather, let me rephrase it. Are there any other major concerns you are having with discussions in Washington that could impact your business?
Specifically, no. I think the general thing, as you mentioned in your introduction of me, I'm also on the city council here in Wadena, so I get a lot of phone calls, emails, things of that from local business people and citizens alike. And I think the biggest thing going in business right now, in the car business, in general Main Street business, is just general uncertainty. I hear a lot of people asking, when do you think we'll get back to normal? And then there's this new thing, of course, called the new normal, which I think we're all tired of hearing that one too. And I think in reality, there is no going back to quote unquote normal. This is business as usual. This is the new economy, and businesses have changed. As you mentioned, through COVID, we've learned a lot, and some of it very positive. The Zoom meeting we're having here today. Think of all the savings, costs, and otherwise that this allows us to do. So we do.
In my remainder 20 seconds, can you talk about discussions that we're having about minimum wage and overspending by the federal government? You got 15 seconds.
You bet. There again, my belief on minimum wage is there was probably a time, and there was certainly a time in this country where that was necessary. I don't believe that's right now. I think that employers and businesses alike can and should up their spending on that. They're going to do it on their own anyway, or they're just going to be left without employees. So I think it's an overreach by the federal government.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you. The gentleman from Minnesota yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Houlihan. Mr. Schlouk, very nice to see you. Deb, Mr. Schlouk, very nice to see you. We really appreciate you being here, and your opening testimony was on target, as I certainly would have expected. So appreciate that. So the Paycheck Protection Program clearly was very important to help through COVID-19. Barry, I'd like to know, when COVID-19 first begun, we had a strong federal response. We had a statewide response. How did Schlouk Incorporated weather the pandemic and related to some of the factors from the government?
Well, like everybody in the call, it was a huge challenge. The worst thing that happened was when I had to show up in the morning and tell 285 families and our workers to go home, and I don't know when you're coming back. That was horrible. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime, at least while I'm healthy. Generally, that happens when you go out of business or you're bankrupt, but I did it because it was the order. And then we spent 6 weeks, about 70% loss in revenues that we normally would have. So we got some waivers. In Pennsylvania, there was a waiver process, and we did get some waivers for some hospitals and things like that. So we did get about 30% going. We paid for our employees' health care during the time. We kept it going. So it was a risk I was willing to take because, I believe in them. So that was hundreds of thousands of dollars that we put out during it, not knowing how this is going to end. And I got to say the PPP really helped. We received it. It's been forgiven, and it really helped offset the loss. However, if we can get to a point where government starts listening more and allows us to help, we could have actually kept working safely through the whole thing. We're outdoors, heavy civil, and that money could have helped somebody else. We did it. We got through it. It was very chaotic, and we did the best we can with what we had.
All right, great. In the interest of time, I know safety is one of your mantra at your company. Feel free to comment on that, but I'm also very interested in your thoughts on some of the big federal legislation coming along. We've got a 3.5 or 2.5, whatever it's going to be, reconciliation bill, and also a transportation infrastructure bill, which, as you know, I feel very strongly for the T&I bill, not so much for the reconciliation bill. Like your thoughts and what you think the economic impact is to our community as well as Schlouk Incorporated.
Let me start with infrastructure, because, you know, there's nothing I can do there because government owns the infrastructure and it's public right of way. You can help as you can with safety and our military. Those are the two areas that I think if you want to help, those are the areas you can help. However, with the infrastructure, don't put in things like project labor agreements and things like that that penalize our employees. We have 285 of the best. And when you start thinking like project labor agreements that prohibits our employees from working on public works projects. And I fully oppose that when they're baked in these transportation bills. I would never ask Congress to prohibit union labor from working on public work, but somehow Congress has made it okay to prohibit non-union. So as far as the $3.5 trillion budget bill or the expansion bill, I sent a letter to Representative Houlihan. I oppose it. And we oppose it because it increases taxes at a very poor time. I mean, right now inflation is going up, prices are going up. We would have to try and pass it through, or it would come out of profit, and it would hinder, our right now we're investing heavily in wages and in training, and we do the things that we need to do with the money that we work hard to earn. And as I did with you, I called you on the PPP. I told you how I spent every dollar of that money, and it all went to wages, training, every red cent that we got in forgiveness.
That's great. Speak about inflation a little bit. How has that affected your business, and do you see it in a short-term or longer-term problem?
Well, in construction, it's crazy. I mean, if you follow materials and you follow what's going on, and some of it we're still recovering from supply chain from the pandemic. We got to give it some time because lumber's way up, steel's way up. Whatever we can manufacture locally, we should be investing locally. But it's a real problem with the costs, and I don't know how much more our end users, which are the homeowners and the business, are going to be able to bear out of this.
Unfortunately, the gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlouk.
I now will yield to the ranking member, Mr. Hagedorn, who will be recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And again, so proud to have Crystal Hernandez from La Plaza Fiesta Restaurant with us today. And I've said many times that our small businesses are pillars of the community, and they have big investments in the community, and they do so much, especially for our small towns. And what Ms. Hernandez and her team have done is a testament to that in the city of Madelia, about 2,500 people. So appreciate you being here. And Ms. Hernandez, I was inspired to hear that some of your fellow taxpayers have stepped up with Paycheck Protection Program, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, things like that. It seemed to have a big impact in helping you get through a tough time with the coronavirus. I also was kind of interested, though, in talking about your other business. How is it that you decided to expand into the grocery business? And maybe you can tell us your background in that as a small business person, why you made that decision.
Okay, that's a good question. I kind of always wanted to have a Hispanic store ever since the one that was currently in Madelia had closed way back before the fire. We had this crazy idea, like we always do. We always have these crazy ideas. And we started getting it ready, and we were 30 days out of opening. Right, the day of the fire, we were 30 days out of opening, so it got pushed behind again. And so the reason is because in our town, there's 35% of the population is Hispanic, and not just from Mexico. Like we are They're from Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras, all Central America. And we have a chicken processing plant named Tony Downs in Medelia that we are so thankful for in our town. And a lot of those people are employed there. And a grocery store, a regular grocery store doesn't have a lot of their products that they're used to in their countries. And so we just thought it would be good to provide that in our community. We also, a lot of people always wanted like to-go meals, things ready quicker than a restaurant can provide. So we thought that our initial idea was to open up like a little deli with a few ethnic groceries, and now it's kind of expanded into like a mini supermarket. So
it sounds like you really found a way to, you had a niche market there and you're going to meet the demand, and that just sounds like good business. So we wish you well in that enterprise as well. Tony Downs, that group is actually at our job fair today. I'm in Mankato at the South Central College at a job fair. So, hey, quick question. So how do you think some of the labor shortages and inflation, maybe with the products that you have to purchase or inflation from other businesses that you do business with, how's that affecting your business now? And do you need some help there?
It's made it very chaotic, kind of just like everything, but we've been, I don't know, I just always have a positive mindset. I know that's really important, and our faith has kind of pulled us through everything. But yeah, it's, if I'm being honest, it's been challenging in a lot of ways. There's shortages on food, there's shortages on even to-go boxes right now, napkins, things that are obviously vital to staying in business. Now that we actually get to be open, now there's so many shortages on that. Thankfully, I am super grateful for our 30 core people that we have working for us. But just like everybody else, we're competing with like unemployment and things like that, and trying to find employees. Now that we are growing, we need more employees as well. So it's been challenging, but yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of supply chain issues, and you're probably sometimes not even able to provide the products and services that you would like, but hopefully that'll get ironed out. I know that the workforce issues have been tough. There've been some extra federal unemployment benefits, which have prevented some people from going back to work. Those are ending now, but you're a lifelong resident of Southern Minnesota. You're an entrepreneur that started her business, I think at what, 22, something like that. You've been through more challenges than you can shake a stick at. And what we don't want is some bad government getting in the way from this point forward. So I just like to congratulate you on what you and your team have done. Really appreciate what you've done for the community of Medelia and the folks down here, and providing the example to others. And I wish you well on your expansion to South Dakota and to the grocery store business as well. Thank you for being here and testifying. Madam Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and I want to now say thank you to our panel for taking the time to walk you through your successes and your challenges as well. We really appreciate it, and we know that it is really not easy to take time away from operating your businesses. So we really appreciate your thoughts and insights. Particularly, my background is in entrepreneurship and small businesses, and I know just how important hours of your time is. So this concludes the second panel of 3, and those of you who participated in the second panel can now exit the Zoom platform, and those who are participating in the third panel hopefully are here already. If you'd like, you can continue to watch the proceedings on the live stream, and with that, I'll have the opportunity to introduce Representative Dean Phillips, who will be taking over as the chair for the next panel. And thanks so much once again for joining us.
Thank you to my colleague, Chrissy Houlihan, and welcome to our third panel today. Grateful to all of those who've testified before, and eager to have our final panel start. We'll just take a moment to introduce each of you before turning it over to testimony. And I will now yield to Representative Newman to introduce our first witness. I want to make sure our panelists are on. All right. Well, if Ms. Newman's not here. I will introduce our first panelist. Let me just get this. Mr. Jamie DiPaolo. In his tenure as the president and CEO of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Jamie has more than doubled its membership. He has established 4 priorities as CEO, such as being a meeting point for the big Latino companies in Illinois, multiplying the ways to train Hispanics with small businesses, ensuring that Hispanic companies can have all the information to access credit and government contracts, and bringing together minorities from Illinois to access better business opportunities. Throughout his career, he has helped open and grow hundreds of businesses in his community and he grew the LVCC membership from 30 to 900 members. He previously served as the business development director for the Greater Oklahoma City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and worked in Mexico as the director of the Mexican and American Thinking Together Foundation. And now I'd like to yield to our ranking member on the subcommittee on investigations, Ms. Van Dyne, to introduce our next witness.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Susan Shaw. Susan grew up in First, Texas before studying business at Howard Payne University. After spending several years in the title business and 7 years in retail, Susan and her husband Howard bought a family-owned independent insurance agency in 2000, which is now called Shaw Insurance Agency, and they've been serving the DFW community since 1981. Married with 2 adult children and an adult stepson, she's an avid reader, mission-minded world traveler, and a self-described community volunteer junkie, which I can personally attest to. Active in the Hurst-Euless Bedford Chamber of Commerce, she serves as the executive board of directors. She chairs WILD, which is Women Inspiring Leadership Development. She's received numerous awards, such as the 2015 Shining Star Award for her involvement in the Community Enrichment Center, the 2017 HEB Chamber Member of the Year, the 2018 Shining Star Award by the HEB Chamber, and she was selected as the 2019 Director of the Year for the Chamber and the recipient of the Gertrude Tarpley Award for 2020. So Susan, I'm so happy that you are here with us. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Van Dyne. And now I will yield to Ms. Houlihan to introduce our next witness.
You thought you could get rid of me.
Right back at you.
I want to have the opportunity now and the pleasure to introduce Mr. Donald Fox. And while I came to know Mr. Fox under really difficult circumstances, it has been a genuine honor to learn about him and see firsthand his passion for serving members of our community. Mr. Fox is the owner, president, and CEO of Fox Theaters, LLC, which is a movie theater company based in our district in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. The company was founded in 1957 by his father, Richard Fox, and it now operates 20 screens in 3 theater locations, 1 in Wyomissing and 2 in Ocean City, Maryland. Don has over 40 years of industry and national trade associate experience, and he's currently reviving the business after suffering devastating pandemic-related losses, as you can probably imagine, over these last 18 months. Emergency federal relief programs that we've championed here in this committee, including the SVOG, the PPP, EIDL loans, and ERC, have all been keys to the survival of his business. Don resides with his wife in Wyomissing. Again, it's my pleasure to introduce him, and I look forward to his testimony. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Houlihan. And now I would like to yield to Ms. Young Kim of California to introduce our next witness.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's my honor to introduce Mr. Mitch Cook. Hello, Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook is co-owner of Avalon Bagels to Burgers. It's a small business representing California's 39th district and serving the most delicious bagels and burgers in all of Southern California. Mr. Cook and his business partners, Mark Cook and Gilbert Mendez, started Avalon Bagels to Burgers in 1997, first in Yorba Linda, and established a second location in Placentia in 2001. More importantly, Mr. Cook is a father of 4 and grandfather of 10. Oh my goodness, I just became a grandma of my very first child, but 10 grandchildren. Kudos to you. You know, I had the pleasure of visiting his small business in Placentia a couple of weeks ago and meeting some of his employees. Mr. Cook, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day from running your business to joining us today. I look forward to hearing more about your business and what you do for our community.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. And I believe I yield back one more time to you to introduce our last witness.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Greg Owens. He's a co-founder and CEO of Cheryl Manufacturing and Liberty Tabletop in Cheryl from New York. I'm introducing Mr. Owens on behalf of Representative Gloria Tenney. Mr. Owens and his business partner, Matt Roberts, started Cheryl Manufacturing in 2005 after flatware producer Oneida Limited moved its manufacturing overseas from upstate New York. Both former Oneida employees, Mr. Owens and Mr. Roberts, they purchased the company's old New York factory and hired back many of their former colleagues. In an era when many US manufacturing firms have moved to China or elsewhere, Cheryl Manufacturing now flourishes with tens of thousands of customers nationwide while supporting over 50 employees in stable, well-paying positions. I look forward to hearing Mr. Owens' insight into how we can help renew the American manufacturing to strengthen self-sufficiency, the availability, high-quality jobs, and flourishing communities across the nation. Thank you, Mr. Owens, for joining us today.
And thank you, Ms. Kim. With that, now we will go to our testimony. I'll recognize Mr. DiPaolo for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Representative Newman would like to introduce her witness to Mr. Phillips.
Okay. I had introduced him in the beginning. Maybe you didn't
All
hear
right,
me. Okay.
never mind. I take it back.
Okay. I hope everybody did hear my introduction, but Mr. DiPaolo, if you'd like to begin your 5-minute opening statement, you can proceed.
Thank you, Representative. My name is Jaime DiPaolo. I'm the President and CEO of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez, for all the members of this House Committee, especially to my Congresswoman and my dear friend, Mary Newman, for allowing me to speak in front of you today. And I would like to thank the Board of Directors of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for the trust. They believe in me. We have an incredible chairman and 11 very committed business people. They're really committed to move the agenda as taking care of small businesses in our community. And also to the team of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, muchas gracias. Thank you for your hard work day in and day out. This is the reason we are here today testifying. It is an honor to testify at this hearing and to have the opportunity to share some matters for your consideration. As we have all worked hard to endure and overcome the pandemic, several things have happened that merit your attention and consideration. Yes, thousands of Latino businesses have disappeared. They're no longer in business, but many, many others have remained standing and remain strong, ready to fight. We know things that we have done better or worse without your assistance. The assistance has been made available from you. And yes, much work remains to be done if you want Latino businesses to reach their full potential. Small businesses are the backbone of the United States economy, making up 99% of the businesses. The federal government has an interest in creating and maintaining the level of playing field for all businesses throughout this country. Certain changes to the disadvantaged business program could help to further establish a level playing field. Structural changes that will improve the competitiveness of DVE firms in the U.S. economy as a whole could include, number one, keep all graduates from DVE programs for 2 years after the president declares a national emergency due to COVID ended. Number two, modify gross receipts calculating but not counting the subcontract expenses by DE firms. Number three, increase the small business size standards by 25% effective immediately and then annually to match the inflation. These changes will give small businesses throughout the United States a fighting chance to make it through the pandemic stronger than where they started, this could translate into real jobs, real opportunities in every economy throughout the country. A stronger economic framework will help create a stronger, fearful economy for everyone. Latino businesses are the lifeline and the communities in which they operate. Continued investment by the United States Congress to ensure that these businesses have access to critical technical assistance throughout organizations like the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and any little chamber of commerce around the state, around the country, will deliver significant return. These organizations are key stakeholders in their communities. They are from the own community. The great majority of them built these organizations from the ground up. These are Latino business owners and entrepreneurs that care about their own community. Providing these organizations with the resources to enable them to guide and serve Latino businesses is much needed step to be considered as we move forward to the post-pandemic future. As to specific recommendation, the IGC worked closely with Illinois Senator Durbin to propose the creation of Hispanic Business Center at the SBA to create initiatives that are geared to serve communities with very specific needs, like program that the SBA operates would support women, veteran, and Native American communities. We're happy to offer for the record a memorandum that outlines the reasoning of the creation of Hispanic Business Centers, and also known in Chicago as the Hispanic Center for Entrepreneurship. We ask that this committee consider making an investment to ensure the largely unrepresentative, underserved Latino businesses receive the assistance that can enable them to achieve their full potential. And I assure you, if we do that, we'll have a better taxpayers' dollars base. In closing, I can see, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, there are many issues to discuss. Count on me with my full support and participation of this honorable committee as many times as necessary, so that together we can find solutions to these problems. We are here to help, as we always say on the chamber. Estamos aquí para ayudar. Muchas gracias. Thank you for this incredible opportunity. It has been an honor to represent over 170,000 businesses in the state of Illinois. Muchísimas gracias. This is from a Mexican immigrant to you. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mr. DiPaolo. And I don't think I've ever seen a witness use that 5 minutes to such perfection in my career in Congress. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to recognize Ms. Shaw for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Great, thank you so much. I was very honored when Representative Van Dyne called and asked me to do this today. So thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all that you're doing to pay attention and listen to our small businesses and the challenges that we face. Thank you to the other committee members for allowing us to be here today. I am a co-owner of Shaw Insurance Agency. It's a family-owned insurance agency started by my father in 1981. He was actually a nuclear physicist for General Dynamics for a number of years, didn't want someone else to put the ceiling on himself. So then he started a real estate agency company, and then later on insurance. He did not find insurance quite as interesting as I do, though. So in 2000, my husband and I purchased the insurance agency, and it was only one carrier, one company, and only home. So growing up in an entrepreneurial family, Howard and I really jumped in knowing that we didn't know insurance at the time, but we knew people and we knew ourselves, and we knew that we lived our values, and we knew what culture that we wanted the agency to grow into. And so we also understood not all business is good business. So we very carefully grew the company that way. Now we have represent over 60 companies, 60 carriers with a personal lines department as well as a commercial department. So March 2020 came around, and the way of doing business around the country kind of changed in an instant. While some states were certainly hit harder than others, it was the small businesses in each community around the country that really bore the brunt of those shutdowns. Small businesses don't have the same deep pockets. They can't afford to keep the staff and the electricity on, so sometimes they have to make those hard choices in order to save their business. I felt strongly from the beginning that we were not going to go remote, if at all possible. I knew from human nature that routine and people are important, but especially in times where fear is the presiding factor. Fear of the unknown is hard, and certainly none of us expected this to last as long as it did. We're still dealing with it, although I believe strongly that not only Texas, but especially North Texas kind of fared better than many parts of the rest of the country. Decisions had to be made not only about my own personal business, but I am the chairman of the board of the HEB Chamber of Commerce. And so we had to make decisions every day that affected the chamber as well as all of our members. How do we continue to support them? became the question that the chamber president and I discussed daily, many times, multiple times a day. We made hard choices, but our mission was to support the small businesses, and we did so in many different ways. We still, every decision we made, advancing business and strengthening community. We did remain open during the pandemic in its entirety. We made changes in the way that we did business. We closed the lobby to walk-in people, salespeople, delivery, and even our own clients. We did temperature checks daily, and our agents had to record that daily when arriving for work and sign the form in the back. We had a local company come in multiple times to fog the entire office to kill any airborne bacteria, any airborne germs, anything that we could do to make our staff know that we were there to help them and there to protect them. We wiped down, and we still continue to wipe down all touch points 3 times a day in an effort to maintain top cleanliness and, again, reduce the risk of spreading germs. After deciding to open back the lobby, we met with our staff to see what their comfort level was. We continued to do the touch points, cleaning those. At the beginning, after spring break last year, the kids couldn't go back to school. We had every agent bring in their laptops in a hope that we didn't have to go remote, but we wanted to be ready if we did. We ended up having 2 agents that needed to work from home in the mornings in order to help their children do remote schooling. At noon, they would head back to the office and start their workday over again. We got through the year that way. When it came time for school to start again, we noticed 2 of our agents were getting really stressed about this. So we decided to offer to allow them to come to bring their children to work and do their school here. This time school was not going to be just until noon every day. It was going to be all day. We offered this option, and the relief was palpable for our staff. You could see that relief. We had school that day, that way for 6 weeks. During all this time, I saw people spiraling and emotionally and physically from the stress. That was the emotional toil that Howard and I wanted to avoid. Our staff feels the same way. We feel like we avoided what so many others went through, but it wasn't without sacrifice. It was tough. We continued to work our regular hours to maintain that sense of normalcy. Our insureds needed us, and we made sure that we were there for them. Most importantly, our staff knew that we valued them, and we did what we could to take care of them physically as well as emotionally. We did not cut hours. We didn't cut pay. We maintained full staff with full benefits the entire time. While we're not through with the pandemic all the way, things continue to change. We as small business owners must learn to cope and be willing to change still when necessary. Lessons learned along the way, but overall caring and dealing with our clients and our staff with compassion has allowed us to still grow during this time when many businesses close their doors. Challenges are necessary and part of the journey, but if you don't use those opportunities to encourage, teach, mentor, and lead other people, you would have wasted the journey in front of you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shaw. And now, Mr. Fox, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Representative Phillips, Representative Houlihan, and members of the House Small Business Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. As the owner of a small business, I am deeply respectful over the work that you do on behalf of companies like mine. I am president and CEO of Fox Theaters, a movie theater company based in Wyomissing, a suburb of Reading in Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District. The company, founded in 1957 by my father, Richard Fox, with a single drive-in theater outside of Reading, today operates 20 screens in 3 theater locations, 1 in Wyomissing and 2 others in the resort town of Ocean City, Maryland. 40 years at the helm of Fox Theaters has given me a valuable perspective, from negotiating with Hollywood movie studios to competing against much bigger regional and national movie theater companies, to delivering a high-quality experience to our customers, all with the limited resources of a small businessman. But one of my most satisfying aspects of my work is providing gainful employment, whether it be first jobs to 16 and 17-year-old high school students, or to senior citizens looking to make some extra money, or full-time employment for theater cleaners, kitchen workers, supervisors, and theater managers. They all dedicate themselves to providing first-class, first-run movie theater entertainment 7 days a week to our loyal customers. We've all been through an unprecedented time for the last year and a half. As was the case with most non-essential businesses, we closed our doors on March of 2020, and except for a few weeks, stayed closed the rest of the year. During that period, our sales were down 96%. Prior to March of 2020, we employed 125 people in Pennsylvania and Maryland. But when the pandemic started, we had to lay off all but 2 full-time and 3 part-time employees. Thanks to Congress's speedy action, the Paycheck Protection Program helped us bring back more of our full-time management, even though we were still shut down, to provide them a steady and reliable income. Today, we are employing 65 people who are all working very hard at rebuilding our business. Federal emergency relief has been key to the survival of my company. In addition to PPP, we were able to access economic injury disaster loans and employee retention tax credit program, both of which have been very meaningful. With those funds, we were able to keep the electricity on and a skeleton crew employed while we waited for the pandemic to end so our customers could return to watch movies in our theaters. But it didn't end. It continued on, and our debts piled up. Representative Houlihan, as you know, we struggled and pivoted where possible to figure out a way to survive the pandemic. We sold curbside popcorn to our loyal customers and set up a pop-up drive-in theater at one of our locations, but it barely scratched the surface. The movie theater industry needed a rescue package, especially if small and independent operators like Fox Theaters were going to survive the pandemic. Movie theaters joined the Save Our Stages cause, launched by the live music venues to ask the federal government to help entertainment venues across the country survive until the audiences could safely return. No one ever imagined that it would take until the summer of 2021 for the movies and our customers to begin to come back. The economic loss that we experienced was devastating for businesses big and small that rely on people gathering together. Thankfully, in 2020, in December 2020, the $15 billion Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program, Sbog, the crown jewel of federal relief for our industry, passed Congress and was signed into law. What was then a cause for celebration soon became a long and challenging setback. Over the next 6 months, businesses teetering on the brink of bankruptcy held on while the Small Business Administration struggled to get the program up and running. The rollout of Sbog was extremely challenging, and from the time the bill was signed until the time the funds were dispersed, thousands of small operators that were shuttered by the pandemic waited anxiously to receive this emergency relief. Many of you on this committee and in Congress were instrumental in helping companies like mine navigate the bureaucracy, and you allocated more federal resources to solve the operational issues the program was facing. In particular, the support we received through Representative Houlihan's efforts to expedite the Sbog funds were critical for the survival of my company and for many others. Fox Theaters lives another day because of what Congress did, but we are not out of the woods yet. The Delta variant surge has thrown a wrench into what we thought was the start of a comeback earlier this summer. And now, unfortunately, the release dates of major Hollywood movies are changing once again. The demise of the movie theater industry has been predicted many times over, whether it be by cable, television, DVD, and now streaming. But Americans don't want to remain in their living rooms. They crave a shared experience out of the home with families, friends, and strangers, and the thrill you only get in a movie theater immersed in the big screen. I am so grateful for the work Congress has done and continues to do. And on behalf of my family, my employees, and the thousands of Fox Theaters customers in Pennsylvania and Maryland, I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And now I recognize Mr. Cook for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you, Representative Phillips and Representative Young Kim and other members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to testify in front of the committee and to hear the stories of so many other small business people and the journeys we've all been on. Thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. My name is Mitch Cook. As you know, I'm one of the owners of Avalon Bagels to Burgers. We are a fast casual restaurant, and we specialize in bagels, sandwiches, melts, salads, smoothies, and grilled items that we make fresh every day. We have 2 locations in the 39th district, both of them in North Orange County in Southern California in the 39th district, one of which opened in 1997, the other in 2001. We employ approximately 30 people between both sites, and we serve the best customers in the world. About 15% of our people have been with us for over 15 years and a host of others for over 10 years as well. One of our slogans is we reserve the right to overserve our customers. And we've tried to make that our objective from the day we opened. And we try to treat each other as family and our customers like our friends. When the pandemic began, we were, like everyone else that's talked about, thrown off our moorings in a hurry. From mid-March of 2020 through the end of May, we were losing cash and revenue and wondering how long we could sustain the business. How long could we stay open? Things became pretty desperate. We ended up every Tuesday selling off boxes of meats and vegetables and toilet paper, anything we could do to generate income, and our customers stood by us. Fortunately, we had some cash reserves. We were able to keep all of our staff, but had reduced operating hours. In mid-May of 2020, we received our initial round of PPP funding, and that was a huge blessing. It allowed us to cover our expenses and make up some back pay to those who had a shortfall due to our reduced hours. That loan was approved for forgiveness in October of last year and gave us a base to make it through the balance of 2020 and all the variations that came with the recurring shutdowns and changes in regulations and closures. Because our revenue had such a significant drop in the second quarter of 2020, and thanks to the PPP Extension Act introduced by Representatives Jonquin, Bordeaux, Luchtenmeyer, and Velasquez, we were eligible for the second round of Payroll Protection Program funding in April of 2021. For those of you who worked on getting these funds through to so many across the country, I would like to say thank you. In both instances, when the money actually hit our bank account, I couldn't believe it was coming. And when it did, I almost felt like Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. So thank you very much. We were desperately in need. The current challenges, as you've heard all morning, have to do with labor shortages and trying to determine how to price our products when the cost components, every cost component we have is increasing. With regard to the labor issue, the unemployment benefits seem to be a reason to discourage people from applying for work. And while I know they were recently, the pandemic-specific unemployment benefits were recently discontinued, I hope this will encourage more and more folks to apply for work. Hopefully the inflation factors will come under control, and as has been mentioned again many times, whatever we can do to help the supply chain disruptions would be a tremendous benefit to all of us. And at the end of the day, we're all obviously working to support our families and those we love, and especially at the small business. I feel like that's the heartbeat of what we do. So it's been an honor to be a part of this group, and thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about our story.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. And last but not least, I recognize Mr. Owens for your 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez, Ranking Member Lukemeyer, and our representative in New York's 22nd Congressional District, Claudia Tenney, the rest of the committee members. I thank you for the honor and privilege to testify before the House Committee on Small Business during National Small Business Week. My focus will be on the successes and the issues facing small business in the manufacturing sector of our economy. It is my hope that the members of this committee and staffers will take the time to read through my written statement, as there is simply not enough time to cover all the topics that I want to discuss in detail. My name is Greg Owens, and I'm here representing our company, Sherrill Manufacturing, and our brand, Liberty Tabletop. Though it may sound hard to believe, Sherrill Manufacturing is the only flatware manufacturer, silverware, left in the United States, Our company sells and manufactures our flatware and we also sell other kitchen and tabletop items online. Everything is made in the USA. Sherrill Manufacturing also has a GSA contract to supply flatware to our military, something that we and all of our employees are proud to produce every day. Our company was formed back in 2005 when Matt Roberts and I purchased the flatware manufacturing equipment from Oneida Limited, located in Sherrill, New York. The Oneida factory was once the largest flatware manufacturing facility in the world, employing over 2,300 people. Why did Oneida Limited decide to scuttle the factory that had been around since Abraham Lincoln was president? The answer is simple: unfair competition from China. The math was simple. After years of fighting to keep the facility alive, Oneida management realized that they could purchase manufactured product from Chinese factories cheaper than they could buy the raw materials to make it with here in the United States. This situation unfortunately still exists today. The American steel industry is largely protected from dumping by the Chinese and others by tariffs under Section 232. While tariffs on steel may be in place to protect the raw material side of the manufacturing business, there has little been done to protect the manufactured goods side. This means that the Chinese continue to dump subsidized steel into the United States, but instead of doing it in the form of raw materials, they simply do it in the form of finished products. The only viable solution to this is to increase tariffs on finished goods across the spectrum to a level that is sufficient, perhaps similar to those on raw materials, to stop the ill effects of this unfair trade practice by the Chinese and others who seek to gain unfair advantage over American manufacturers. As the only manufacturer of flatware in the United States, the pandemic had a major impact on our business. Our sales grew by over 150% from pre-pandemic levels. Why? Because Americans, the American consumer, want to buy American. However, there is not an issue here. When you go to the store to buy products, by law, the purchase that you're making, the product package has to have country of origin label on it. That is not the case online. Included in the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, commonly referred to as the China Bill, the Senate has taken action in the form of an amendment to the bill requiring that country of origin labeling, or COOL, listings be made for products sold on the web. I am hopeful that the House version, which is being drafted now, will contain similar COOL language and be passed into law shortly. My final point, but perhaps the most important of all, is that there can be no renaissance in American manufacturing without workers. A simple walk down Main Street, looking at all the help wanted signs, provides graphic evidence that we have a worker crisis. There are currently 1.3 million more job openings than people on the unemployment rolls. Population growth is at historic lows and workforce participation rates are also down substantially. Automation will help to some degree, but will fall far short of bridging the worker gap. But there is a solution, and it is an adjacent, seemingly unrelated news story that seems to make the paper every day. We are also in the middle of an immigration crisis. While I realize there are widely divergent views on this issue, I am not sure anyone believes that the current situation is in any way acceptable. America is starved for workers, and we have millions of people who are either already here or arriving in increased numbers every day. I believe it is time to put aside the partisan wrangling and the rhetoric in order to put this situation in order and resolve these two major issues facing us today as we rebuild our post-pandemic economy. Despite the partisan divide on many issues, Made in America, including the return of a manufacturing industry to our shores, is one issue that seems to draw all sides together. The pandemic has taught us many supply chain lessons. Give us a level playing field and protect us against industrial policies of other nations that unfairly dump their products in our marketplace. Give us the raw materials we need to build our widgets. Give us the labor force that we need to expand our production in our factories. Give us all these things, and American small business will turn on the lights in factories across the country and help drive our economy to future decades of growth and prosperity. I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee today and look forward to answering a couple questions, perhaps.
All right, thank you, Mr. Owens. And now we'll move to questioning. And it's my pleasure to recognize my colleague, Ms. Newman, for 5 minutes.
Well, good morning, everyone. I apologize for specifically to Jaime. I'm so sorry, my friend. I was in a T&I markup and they had me in a cage. I couldn't get up. No, I'm kidding. So I do have a question for you regarding your testimony. And thank you so much for articulating all of the wonderful things that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce does, because it is remarkable in our state and it's a really great model for our entire country. So my question has to do with the Disadvantaged Business Program, or we frequently refer to it as DBE. I know you shared some of the improvements. I'd love for you to recap them for this team for the record, but then also I have one other tiny question. So if you want to share, Jaime, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Representative Newman. And yeah, so we in our chamber, we are a very unique chamber of commerce. We host several federal programs. We have in our office a small business development center. We also have a PTAC, a procurement technical assistance center, and several other programs, the U.S. Department of Transportation, and we work with the Illinois Tollway to create opportunities for minority-owned companies get access to fair contracting, really. So what I was talking about, Representative Newman, is we need to increment the level playing field, so minority companies actually are there to grow. The object of the program is for them to become primes eventually. And the way the program set up right now, they will never become primes because you know, after they graduate, after 2 years, they don't qualify to be MBEs and so on and so forth, and they make too much money, they're kicked out of the program. So the objective here is to make sure they become primes. And after they become primes, obviously the wealth goes up. Yes, so that's what I was talking about.
Great. And one other question before I let you go. So I know that, you know, the lack of labor is affecting everybody, and there's a bunch of different reasons for that. You know, whether it's childcare or they're working with an illness in their family or whatever it might be. Do you have any immediate solutions for our small businesses that are looking for labor that the chamber has had success with, or other programs that you know are helping bridge that gap and matching unemployed with small businesses?
Thank you, Representative Newman. That's a great question. You know, the word of the day is labor force. Where did the labor force went? And there's several indicators that address that issue. One of them is, you know, the federal benefits that just ended to some states. So that's a good thing. Now we're going to see an influx of laborers coming back to the workforce. But especially in the service industry, people went out and got other jobs. The manufacturing, construction, those two industries are booming. So that's where the labor force went, you know, usually, especially in the minority communities. So what we see now is restaurants and commerce adjusting to those schedules. And we see, for example, in Illinois, as you may know, restaurants, for example, they were open 3 shifts. Now they're adjusting to open up 2 shifts, and hopefully they can bring some more laborers coming in to work. So it's just, we're going through the adjustment period. We're going to see a labor improvement here pretty soon in the next couple of months, once the economy and everybody else is back to the workforce 100%.
Well, thank you so much, Jaime, and really appreciate your thoughts and comments today. And I yield back, Chair.
All right, thank you. Now it's my pleasure to recognize Ms. Van Dyne for 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you. By the way, Mr. Owens, I understand you're from Rome, New York. I lived there for 4 years. My dad was in the Griffiths Air Force Base, so I read all about you. I've actually been to your facility before. We actually have some of your products, so I love the small businesses from upstate New York and around the country. Ms. Shaw, thank you for joining us again. And look, I appreciate all that you have done. I love that story that you told about, you know, opening up your conference room and having kids come in, you know, so that your workers would feel comfortable, that they'd be able to keep their eye on the kids, make sure that they're going to school. It's those things that I saw around our district, around our communities, that really helped, I think, you know, working families be able to, you know, achieve success in the last 18 months. You know, in your testimony, you thought that you said that you thought North Texas fared better than most during the pandemic. Can you elaborate a little bit on what led to that success?
Certainly. Well, for one thing, we didn't shut down like so many, excuse me, of the other states around the country did. I feel like we fared better because of that. And because of the fact that we did not shut down, there were people moving here constantly. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and the growth in our area has just exploded. And so those people coming in, buying homes, paying into the community, paying taxes into the community, and buying services and goods, all of those really helped to keep the North Texas area vibrant in a time that that many businesses were still struggling, of course, but I feel like we fared better than other parts of the country in many ways.
So this administration, the majority continues to propose several tax increases that will undoubtedly affect small businesses. We have a small business who did not see that tax hikes at all, that tax hikes are affecting small businesses. You know, coming off an almost 2-year pandemic, can you talk about how tax increases on your small business would affect you and other businesses?
I don't see how it cannot hurt the small businesses. Increased taxes mean we won't be able to give our employees raises that we'd like to. It means we can't maybe do maintenance that needs to be done sometimes to the building and your facilities. Keeps us from hiring additional employees, and it hinders our ability to do upgrades to computer equipment and some of the other things that it takes to keep a business running as it should. So I don't know how it would not hurt us. I can't find a reason.
Okay, thank you. So in your role as the chair of the Hearst-Euless Bedford Chamber of Commerce Board, have you seen labor shortages or heard from chamber members who are struggling to find workers? And what are you hearing that led to these shortages, and how have businesses responded to them?
Absolutely. I believe every single business that I'm aware of, from the small mom and pop businesses to our local hospitals, to the airport, DFW airport, to our waste management, they're all have shortages. They all are looking for qualified people. Republic Waste Management, they've started their own training school. So they're all trying to find ways to participate in that job market. You know, they're trying to find the people. The government checks, I think they were way too much and went on for way too long, and it took the incentive away from people to go back to work. They became too comfortable staying at home, and then whenever they could make more money staying at home, then coming back out to work. When they go back to work, it's gas, it's money for lunch, it's money for childcare. And so whenever they were being paid more to stay at home, then our businesses that were opening up, as they were opening up, were our essential businesses, such as our first responders and our hospitals, losing those people. That's not the same people that are working in minimum wage jobs. These are people from the minimum wage jobs all the way up to our hospitals that are struggling. For the Chamber of Commerce, we worked tirelessly to try to work with our members. We have a business expo coming up, and we have incorporated a job fair into that. So we have worked with all 3 cities of Hearst-Euless and Bedford, and we will be putting signs out and trying to really get more community involvement, and trying to let the people that are searching for a job or ready to get back in the workforce, we're trying to introduce them and put them together with the local business owners. So we're hoping that our job fair will go well. And so, we're just trying to do anything that we can to help support our local businesses.
Excellent. I see my time has expired. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, forgive me. And now it's my pleasure to recognize Ms. Houlihan for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Mr. Fox, for joining us today, for the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about your experience in terms of live venues, in terms of the people who are from industries like yours, who were the very first to have to close, and who will still be the very first who experience being able to get back to some sense of normalcy. I'm very, very grateful to you for the narrative that you can share with us and the experience that you can share with us. And particularly for this part of the country, for the mid-Atlantic of the country, our experience is very different than other parts of the country's experience were. And we did have to do a lot of things very differently in our part of the country so that we could protect, frankly, other parts of the country from experiencing what it is that we have experienced over the last 18 months. And so for that, I really want to pay tribute to you for having done the right thing in keeping people safe and healthy in their homes. So with that, I would love to know if you could share with me what we can do from this point on. You mentioned your concern with the Delta variant. I have concerns too. I don't believe that we're necessarily out of the woods here, and that people still, I think, are a little bit reticent to come out and participate in live events. What can we be doing to be helpful to continue to bring people around to your businesses?
Great. Representative Houlihan, thank you very much for the question. And again, thank you for the honor to be speaking to all of you today. So I've been listening to all the testimony. I'm surprised by some of the things I heard, not surprised by some others. Your question is a good one, and I'm going to say a word that I don't think I've heard said yet today: immunization. That's what we need to do. I know it's a political topic, and I don't want to get into politics, but for my industry, that is the difference maker. And I think that is what will ultimately lead us out of the Delta surge or any other surge that we're going to have in pandemic is immunization. Herd immunity, whatever you want to call, is going to be as a result of that. But until we get more people immunized, we're going to have this battle in my business and in any other business that's asking the public to come. Because the public is a diverse group, and it's a group of younger people who feel that they don't need the vaccine, or older people who won't dare go anywhere without a mask or a vaccine, and a lot of people in between. And people who go to movies represent every walk of life, every socioeconomic group. And we'd like them to gather together, to have fun, to enjoy, to take some time out, to eat, drink, and recline like we have in the front of our theater. And without, the vaccine, it's not going to work. And so we just need more vaccination, and that's the difference maker for us. I do want to shout out two things that I did hear from two of the other testifiers, Mr. Owens and Mr. DiPaolo. I loved what you both said about how to address some of the labor issues. I think immigration is a tough topic. We have huge labor challenges in our industry for a lot of reasons that Mr. DiPaolo spoke about. And I think what the pandemic has shown us is that federal government can act quickly with great focus, not without problems, bureaucratic problems, but it can work. And I applaud what you have all done, members of this committee and Congress, to not just save our industry, but to save American industry. You've done an amazing job, and I'm very proud of the federal government and what it's done.
Thank you. And I think you're right. I've been listening to the testimony all day, and I haven't, you're right, heard immunization as an answer. And I think that it's really, really important. One of the things I'm really proud about Pennsylvania 6 for is, for a certain amount of time, we were leading the nation in terms of vaccination rates, literally the county in the country that was most vaccinated. And what's really, really cool about parts of our community is that we're 40% Democrat, 40% Republican, and 20% independent. And we collectively believe that immunization is the way that we can find our way out of this. And so for that, I am appreciative. With my last 45 seconds, if you could give one piece of advice, I'm an entrepreneur to another entrepreneur, to our entrepreneurs out there, about having the stomach to be able to be an entrepreneur, what would be your seasoned experience that you could share with the rest of us on that?
Wow. You don't get a lot of sleep as an entrepreneur. You wake up thinking about your customers and the people who work for you and all the challenges that are out there. So just keep yourself in good shape, eat healthy, and believe in the people who work for you, because they're extraordinary, and treat your customers like kings, because they are. And without customers, you have no business. Without employees, you have no business. And in my business, without movies, we have no business. So those are our big three. Thanks.
And with that, we've run out of time, and thank you so much. And I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Houlihan. And now I yield to Ms. Young Kim of California for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chairman. And I want to thank our committee chair and ranking member for holding this important hearing. And I'm delighted to participate and honor our small business owners from our respective districts during this National Small Business Week. In my mind, every week should be National Small Business Week to honor the great work our entrepreneurs do in creating jobs and being the engine of our middle class and mainstream economy. Small businesses have already suffered through one of the worst economic crises and market disruptions in our nation's history because of that COVID-19 pandemic. But fortunately, our country came together in a bipartisan way to provide immediate relief for struggling small businesses through programs like PPP, and gave entrepreneurs like my witness, Mr. Cook, and many others that testified today to keep their capital and keep their businesses open and retain employees during the pandemic. And once again, in the 117th Congress, we showcased once again what we can achieve in a bipartisan fashion by passing that PPP Extension Act that allowed additional 2.7 million loans for $54 billion total in aid. So I'm really glad that our witnesses have taken advantage of this PPP loans and were able to use it to keep your business open. So with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Cook, you know, we are all struggling, but you weathered through the difficult times and you are now successful. So I want to thank you for being the job creator. But I see that you started your career in industrial engineering. So can you explain to the committee what made you change course in your career and establish your own business and take on this risk of becoming an entrepreneur? And in your time as an entrepreneur, how would you compare this COVID-19 pandemic with other economic downturns?
Thank you, Representative Kim, and thanks to all of you for the opportunity to be a part of this morning of sharing our stories. How I ended up switching from industrial engineering to owning our own business is kind of a long story. In 1971 in El Monte, California, my parents bought a Taco Bell franchise. So I grew up well through high school and through college, small family business, and you all know the story, working tirelessly and being involved in the day-to-day operations of getting by. Then went through school and had an engineering degree, and I did work for different corporations for 16 to 18 years. And although it was good, there was always a part of me that missed the day-to-day life of owning your own business. And in general, in my opinion, life is relationships. It's relationships at every level with people, with God, with ourselves, with others. And I just found that when you own your own business and you're in the kind of into the fray every day with folks, those are deep. And so we were able to purchase a few more Taco Bells in '96, and then in 2001 had the opportunity to get involved with Avalon. And so that just kind of the way I was wired led me more toward having own business and giving own shot. With regard to how it's compared, the tough part, and I'm sure all of you can relate to, this downturn was so fast and so sudden, and to have to make decisions on the fly so quickly compared to, say, the 2008, 2009 recession, where you kind of saw it coming and there was a gradual slope to it. That was really tough. But again, I just reiterate what everyone said. Thank you to all of you at the federal level that were able to provide us with funds. It was a life-saving device for us. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you for sharing your story. Now, as you continue to operate your business, I know there is a lot of the policies that affect your operations. So can you share with us how the increase in inflation and price of goods and the supply chain disruptions are impacting your business operations?
You know, again, as everyone else has said, and as just Econ 101, is as our costs go up, we have to change our prices. And especially when you're small, that's a tough exercise to do repeatedly and to do often. So it's been hard, and we don't want to drive away customers and trying to stay competitive. So the inflation side of it. On the supply chain disruption is every day as we show up, we don't have something. So it's been tough on productivity. It's been tough on offering our customers the best products we can. and has just made what is already a tough business. Any business is tough. But what has made an already tough business is just added a whole layer of complexity on it that has made it tougher as well. But thankfully, we've been able to weather it, and we look forward to what lies ahead. And just want to reiterate too, with Mr. Owen's idea on immigration, and appreciate you sharing that thought that we are for the immigrant. We're a nation of immigrants, and I know it's a very, very complex issue, but we'd encourage you to do whatever we can to make it fair and just for folks to come here and pursue whatever they feel they like to. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for your testimony. And from one immigrant to another, I'm here to live the American dream because of the opportunities that this country provided for me and my family. And thank you for mentioning the importance of welcoming immigrants to this country who wants to also live that American dream. So thank you, all of you, for your hard work and for weathering through the difficult times. And we are here to be your small business advocate. Thanks again for joining us. I see that my time's up.
Thank you to my friend from California. In fact, no more beautiful words could be uttered to close this hearing. And I want to thank you all of our witnesses for joining us. You've been heard. We have your backs, and rest assured, despite what you all see on TV screens at night, we are unified on the Small Business Committee to supporting you. Many of us are business owners ourselves. And your testimony hits home to us, and we want to thank you. So with that, I must ask that you log out of the platform now. If you want to continue watching for a few more moments on our YouTube live stream, please feel free to do so. And most importantly, heartfelt gratitude. Keep the faith and hang in there. We're going to be helping you out, promise. Thanks, everybody. And with that, we will now close the hearing, but just some brief comments first. Hearing from our Main Street champions during such a difficult time in our nation's history, especially for the business community, is touching, inspirational, and reminds us of why we must unify behind support for small businesses. I believe representation begins with listening. That's what we've done here today on a bipartisan basis. And on that note, just in the last week here in my district, Representative Angie Craig, my colleague here from Minnesota, and I hosted a roundtable. And just yesterday, Representative Van Dyne from Texas came up to Minnesota, and we also had a listening session with small businesses, hearing many of the same things that were shared today. I think it's important for members of Congress on a bipartisan basis to sit together and listen together to the issues that are facing so many in our country. I think right now about Christine Lantanen, the owner of Mod Borup, which is one of the oldest candy makers here in Minnesota. She talked yesterday about being 100 employees short right now, paying for shipping containers from Asia that had been $3,000 per 40-foot container that are now $25,000, if you can even get one. We know how tough it is. We know how inflation impacts you. We know how labor crunches impact you. We also want to ensure that your tax dollars are well used, just like all of us, of course. We're unified to that end. So I ask that you all keep the faith, you keep in touch with us. I think it's integral, imperative that we continue to fulfill our mission to provide support to small businesses. During COVID, where some of the funds have been distributed, in my estimation, many of our estimation, in an inequitable fashion, we can and must rectify that. And we have to ensure that capital provision is available to entrepreneurs in this country. Moments ago, stories were told of immigrants coming to this country with big dreams, and that's exactly what the United States is all about. And to the extent that we can ensure that there's access to capital so that those dreams can be pursued, we must do so, and do so fast. So with that, I want to thank all of our witnesses for joining us today. And I would ask for unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record, and without objection, so ordered. So if there is no further business to come before the committee, I do not have a gavel, but I have a pen, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.